All right, so with
Oh,
that being
that's
said, guys, we're
part two
back.
is the
All right,
response.
go ahead, Terry. You wanted to respond. I cut you off, Terry, while
Yeah.
you were responding. Go
So,
ahead.
Nelson, no one is saying that the government can be forced to bring him back. I don't think you understand. That would be, must effectuate his return, okay? They said you can't force him
He
back.
has facilitated. He has already
Then, Grant,
facilitated
would you
getting
No, he
the
let me
guy
hasn't.
respond?
back,
I am responding,
including bringing
Grant.
the
Grant,
president,
go
the
back into your
Venezuelan.
little corner. Go to your bathroom. Do run the water
Yeah,
like you always do. Come on, Grant, stop. You don't. You're. This is way above your pay grade. Okay. So listen. The Nelson, no one is saying that the president can be forced to do this. And in fact, the Supreme Court was very clear. The president, we respect the president's role in national and foreign policy, things like that.
you
But
don't
what they
respect the
are
president.
saying, Grant, go back in the bathroom. What they are saying is that the government and the president has to take steps to facilitate release from custody. He has to try. That's what they've asked him to do. And
Yes, he
instead of
has attempted.
trying, Grant, please, this is way above
He
what you're
has
capable of
attempted.
understanding. What they're asking him to do
Didn't the
is to take
president?
re.
Wasn't
Can
the
someone
president in
stop
his
this
office
man?
last week?
Can someone stop this man because he doesn't know anything about the law? You're great in business. Go buy something. Okay.
Somebody get
Anyway,
him a toy real quick to
yeah,
Wasn't the
someone just give him a
president?
toy, give him some noise, something like a little. How about a little fire engine, Grant? And then you can press it, going wee wee
Wasn't the
wee. Okay,
president?
that should make you very happy,
Wasn't
Nelson.
the
What the president, however, has an obligation to do under the Supreme Court is
president? Wasn't the
something. He must try
in his
things. He
office
must
last week?
ask. He must do things,
He
and the
has.
court has made that
He
very clear.
has.
Now he hasn't. We don't know
Yes,
that
he
he's done
brought him
anything,
into
and
his
the
office.
reason why we know he hasn't done anything is
He
because his
has. He
lawyers
was.
said
The
that.
president was in
No,
his
his
office with
lawyers
Donald
in
He
Trump
court.
gave
last
him
Can
week.
a
someone
plane.
stop Grant? Jonathan, please mute him. He's really annoying and he
No,
doesn't know what
dude,
he's
he
talking
had the
about.
president
Volley
in his
back and
Grant,
office
forth. Play
last
Grant,
nicely
can I
together.
finish?
What are you
I'm
talking
just going to
about?
talk over this man because he doesn't know. He has no legal training. He doesn't know anything. So
And
we know that nothing has happened because the president's lawyers said that. They said, we don't believe he has to do anything. We don't think he even has to ask. All we're willing to say is if the guy somehow gets to America, ooh, then we will let him in. They've said that in multiple filings. They've basically said the president has no obligation. Facilitate doesn't mean what all of us know facilitate means. So they themselves are acknowledging he hasn't done anything. And what we saw in the Oval Office actually was used by the plaintiffs in this case to say, look, this was he never asked. He didn't say anything. Bukele said, I'm not going to do it, but that's different. The president made no effort in front of like millions of people to do anything. They're not saying he must come back. They're not saying that, Nelson. You don't seem to understand that. Nobody's saying that he will be forced to come back. What they are saying is reasonable steps to get him released, and reasonable steps would
you're
mean
repeating yourself
asking.
now. You're
I
just
don't really
repeating
care.
yourself.
Grant, get your little toys. Come on, get your
You're
little
repeating
machine.
Please
Did
yourself.
you get a
do.
Okay.
sound machine? Can't we get that man a nice sound machine so he can do his little sound effects?
Again,
Because
you're
it seems to
repeating
make him
yourself.
so
You
happy.
need some
Thank
new.
you.
All right, Grant, it's your turn.
Yeah, you're just repeating yourself. Nelson is going to tell you why you're wrong, and the president, Donald Trump, invited the president to his. What else? What else do you want him to do? You can't make the guy bring him back. So, like, I don't know what. I don't even. You're just
Okay.
going
The
around in circles.
president
You're like
was
a fucking
asked.
goldfish right
He
now. I
was
mean, a
asked.
oldfish.
No, no, no. He was asked
No,
in the
he
court
brought him in.
filings what he had done. What he had done to do anything to help bring him back. And his people refused to say anything.
He
They have
doesn't need.
not
He
given
doesn't
anything.
need. He doesn't need. He doesn't need to answer
Yes,
those
he
questions.
does.
That's
And you'll
ridiculous.
see.
Tear.
Oh,
Ridiculous.
I think you're overstepping here, right? And let me respond without you trying to cut me off, if that's okay. Is that okay?
She can't do it.
Hopefully it is, right? Listen, even if you need to understand something, the president in this case is not compelled to act unless the Supreme Court's ruling includes a binding order, right? With enforceable consequences, which is pretty much impossible in an immigration case like this, right? Which is why they're essentially pleading for him to facilitate a return because they know they have no grounds to stand on. It's impossible. The president really doesn't need to do shit. That's the facts,
That's not the
right?
facts.
Shut
It's
up. This
not.
boy is talking to mute your goddamn mic. I said Tira, don't interrupt me. Now it's your ass that wants to interrupt me.
Well,
What the
you
fuck is wrong with you?
stopped. I'm sorry. You stopped for a second.
I did not fucking stop. I'm barely even done. Mute your goddamn mic.
I wanted to correct something that you said.
Improve your hearing, goddamn it.
You had stopped.
What
Sorry.
That
the
boy is
fuck?
crazy.
What's wrong with this guy? I mean, geez, crazy. Anyways, listen. Even if the Supreme Court ruled that Mr. Garcia's deportation violated due process, advises or directs the administration to facilitate his return, blah, 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 the actual steps required to bring him back, I'm going to break it down for you, right? We're talking about issuing the guy visas, right? We're talking about dealing with a foreign government, right? We're talking about negotiating the release with the foreign government. These are all executive functions. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're all executive functions. The Supreme Court's limits are the U.S. borders with another country. The Supreme Court or any court on U.S. soil has no legal standing when you're talking about stuff that goes beyond the U.S.'s borders. That's when the president gets involved, right? And that's the Constitution right there. Okay, so like literally, I mean, we could say, yeah, maybe the president is in violation in the of the spirit of the ruling, right, by not doing anything, right? But he's not in violation of the actual law. You literally have his attorney general, the attorney general of the United States, going up there and calling this guy a goddamn terrorist. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why do you think the Attorney General of the United States is not compelling the president to actually do something here? Because they know the courts have zero leg to stand on. But it's in a room like this that you motherfuckers want to fucking argue
Oh my
like
God.
you know some shit. It's not how it works. Executive functions,
Nelson,
judicial
can I ask
functions.
a question?
It's that simple.
Yeah, if it was that simple,
What is
if it's that simple, okay, the Supreme Court wouldn't have ruled 9-0. Okay, and these other courts,
This
guys,
guy's so
it's crazy. It's crazy that we sit here. As a matter of fact, the president is not even order. They're not even arguing with you arguing any longer. They abandoned that argument. They abandoned that argument already. Okay, so and it's crazy. I mean, you gotta really, if you're paying attention to the administration, if you gotta really keep up because they move really, really quickly. Okay, they move really thick. They do things fast. They break things. They move things, and they keep moving fast. They left that argument that you have, okay, and they're on to something else. They're not even arguing that no more because the courts demolished that. But you're still here arguing last week's argument. That's all I gotta say. Go ahead, Jonathan.
no, 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 no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah, 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 because it came to me. The
Oh my
attorney
god.
general is a lawyer who represents who, Nelson?
The United States of America.
Okay, not the president. So she should be holding what is true by the court because that's the law that she was given. She needs to then make sure that that law, because it's been interpreted by the Supreme Court, is then enforced. Not saying what the president wants.
Are you done? Let me move on to people that actually have comments.
Okay,
No,
sure.
Nelson thinks that the U.S. is a
Let
CEO,
me
but
move
the
on to something
USA
else
is
real
not the
quick.
I'm
Let
go
me let me
move on.
let me respond to Jonathan. I think that's worth responding to. So Jonathan, you said the administration is taking a different stance. Well, I mean, do us a favor, right? While I'm speaking right now, literally just go on DHS's Twitter page and look at the stuff Department of Homeland's putting out there in regards to the situation. I'm going to help you out with a White House press conference from yesterday. This is
Oh
yesterday.
my God.
Listen.
Gilmar Abrego Garcia was originally arrested. He was wearing a
Bullshit.
sweatshirt with rolls of money covering the ears, mouth, and eyes of presidents on various currency denominations. This is a known MS-13 gang symbol of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Abrego Garcia was also arrested with two other well-known members of the vicious MS-13 gang. And two separate judges found that Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and that finding has never been disputed. And just this morning, it was revealed through Maryland court documents that Abrego Garcia's wife petitioned for an order of protection against him for two instances of domestic violence in May of 2021. And here is the order right here. The court ordered that the respondent committed the following acts of abuse. Once in May of 2021, assault in any degree. And on May 4th of 2021, he punched and scratched his wife, ripped off her shirt, and grabbed and bruised her. This is from a court in Maryland. So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater. To set all of that aside, the basic fact that he was illegally inside our country and had a lawful deportation order made him subject to removal back to his home country of El Salvador. And if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again. And the United States Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the President of the United States and the Secretary of State could not be compelled to forcibly retrieve this citizen of El Salvador who is currently locked up in a maximum security prison in his home country due to his MS-13 membership.
So
And that
Jonathan,
last
no,
piece there, Nelson,
bro,
that
I'm
last
not
piece there,
done
Nelson.
speaking, dude. Let me finish. Like, yo, dude, listen. Only women jump in like that. Like, seriously. Like,
Oh, good. You're
and
calling me a woman
like,
now. I don't give a fuck.
I mean,
You must
you're
have never
acting like
listened
a
to
fucking
Grant speak
bitch.
for you to say
You
that.
know, like, let me
Grant
finish
is a woman
talking,
now?
dude. Like, dude's got Jonathan. I accidentally muted the stage, bro.
Yeah, one mic, guys. We can't do that. We can't. No, we're not doing that. We can't do
Thank
that.
you, thank you. Let me finish
No,
what I was
no.
trying to say, right? So here's what I'm trying to say by playing this recording. The administration stance, right? Unlike
Let's
what you
change.
said, right? Their stance is we're staying 10 toes fucking down, okay? On the fact that number one, the Supreme Court can compel the executive, right? To bring this man back into the country. Number two, we're standing 10 toes down on the fact that this guy's a goddamn terrorist, right? Number three, we're standing 10 toes down on the fact that only the executive handles matters outside the borders of the United States. That's the administration stance.
No,
And
this,
that is legal according to the United
no.
States
What
goddamn Constitution.
what they said is that they can't. Once again, that the president. They actually said that the president should actually facilitate the return. Okay. So when you're saying here, because initially they said that the Supreme Court can't speak to affairs outside. Okay. They said, and they said that they could speak to affairs outside because that due process was actually he was entitled to due process. You need to facilitate and bring him back so that he can get his due process. So the argument that they were making before was like, no, you have no say in this. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, we do have a say in this. So that argument you argued a little while ago said that they can't tell the president what to do. Yeah, they can. Okay, and they did actually, and it was a 9-0 or it was a 9-0 agreement. Okay, saying because they're spinning it, and actually they're playing in your face, but you're cool with it. They
Nelson,
spin it
can I
around.
ask you a question?
They spin it around, and they're spinning it around and saying that that the courts ruled in the president's. I mean, in the president's favor, which was
They
not true.
did.
They ruled
They
against
did
the
not.
president.
They ruled against
They
the
ruled
president.
against the
Yes,
Yes.
president.
because the word facilitate really carries a lot of weight, right?
Yes,
Jesus.
it does actually, Diana, but I guess
And
you wouldn't know
you're
that.
right, because we
Nelson,
already facilitated.
Diana,
We
be
already
quiet.
facilitated it.
Diana, be quiet. Nelson, so what you're suggesting
You're
is let's
wrong.
just say Trump were to decide he could deport American citizens who are vicious criminals to El Salvador, and El Salvador takes custody of them. What you're saying is nobody can make them or try and ask them to get them back. Is that what you're saying? Because that would be the logical implication of what you've just said.
I love the fact that number one, I'll tell you two things I just noticed. When Jonathan started speaking, immediately the first thing that came to my mind is this guy did not listen to shit. He was trying to figure out what to say. You noticed that, so you grabbed the microphone from him, interrupted his
Can
ass
you
for one
That's
stop?
not
Get
true.
Would
him.
you
That's
just
not
That's
stop?
not
true.
what
Get
That's
happened.
him,
not
David.
true.
That's
One
not
second.
what
One
happened.
second.
But keep
One
let's
second.
make up
One is
stories.
David. One is
One mic.
David,
One mic.
dumbass.
One mic. One mic. Hold on. One mic. One mic. One mic.
You know what he's
Because
talking
one
about.
mic. Yeah. Boom. There you go. Now let me just say something. I actually addressed that concern. You said that the Supreme Court could not. Okay. They what they did was they did address something that happened outside, and they told them they had to facilitate the returns. And I told you that is no longer okay the administration's position. Their position has evolved. Okay, has evolved. Okay, to sort of try to beat or manipulate the ruling. Okay, what you were doing was speaking about what they were saying before that ruling came out. They're no longer speaking that way. They're no longer, and
Excuse,
that's why you're using the words facilitate and everything else, because they're no longer speaking that way, Nelson. They're speaking about they're speaking directly to the ruling. They're speaking directly
Excuse,
to. So you can laugh all you want because it's real. They're speaking
excuse
directly
me,
to the ruling.
Jonathan. Jonathan, can I add my voice to this?
No, no, no,
bro.
one second,
Join the
man.
queue. Join the queue, bro. One second. Let me
Nelson,
finish.
did
Oh,
you
I didn't know there was
respond
a
to
queue. I
me?
would
Wait,
like
who
to add
is
myself to the
Norton?
queue,
Going
please.
the queue's
One second,
crazy.
my brother. One second, my brother. One second. One second.
Hang on,
So
man. Go
again,
ahead, Nelson.
just going back to what I was saying before, he tried to save him.
No, bro,
Listen,
bro.
I
I,
asked
I,
Oh,
I,
you.
you're
I
so
straight up
funny,
said,
Nelson.
that they changed their position. What the hell are you talking about? And what you
Listen,
played
I
didn't
also
change
asked
anything.
you a question.
One second.
Can
Let
you
me
answer
finish,
the
please.
question, Nelson? Or can you not
You
answer the
guys,
question and that's why you're making all this nonsense?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
guys,
Answer my question.
he's doing
listen.
this.
Listen,
Answer my question, Nelson.
so you know me, man. Very simple. And on top of that, Tara, I love the fact that you're no longer trying to argue with me on my points because you know I'm factual.
You're wrong on your points. I'm
You're
asking.
trying to bring something else up. You're
No,
trying
no,
to bring
no, no,
something
no.
else up,
This is
which
not
is
a
cool.
different
Which is cool. Let
issue.
me
This is
finish.
the
Let me finish.
same
By the way,
issue.
let me finish. By the way,
Well,
right? Let
don't
me finish.
characterize what I'm saying.
Let
I'm
me finish.
perfectly happy to keep
I'm
saying
one
you're
thousand
wrong.
percent
He's going to
characterizing
keep
it. So
characterizing
here's the
everything
deal.
until he
In
gets
in
yeah.
the instance in the instance where we brought back Brittany, I forget her last name, the lady that was detained in Russia for the
Brittany Griner.
marijuana. Yeah, 1000%. No court in the United States could have compelled the president to get her back. Only the president and the executive could actually get her back, right? Because again, separation of powers, going back to the Constitution. Judicial handles situations within the U.S. borders. Executive handles everything outside of the U.S. borders. Very simple, very straightforward, which is why the administration facilitated her return. Just like any other U.S. citizen that's been captive in a different nation, only the executive handles it. Straight up, straight to the point blank, period. Now, in the situation of a U.S. citizen, I highly doubt we will ever get to the point where a U.S. citizen is deported to a different nation. It is impossible. There's
Thank
no
you, Nelson.
due
Thank you.
process for that. It is literally an impossible feat to accomplish. Do you understand? So your question is really stupid, honestly.
Oh, Trump
But
has
but
said he
just
wants
We're
to
not going to
do
but
worry
this.
about it when it happens,
Trump has
Tara.
said he wants to do this. He said it on
let,
multiple
let
occasions.
him
Oh,
do
I
it
want to
first, then we
send
can have that
U.S.
conversation.
citizens
he
abroad.
loves to get those Democrats going, doesn't
Right.
he? He
No,
just
he
Let
keeps
wants.
let him
He
feeding
do
and
it
said
first,
he
then we
feeding
can
you
wants to
have
do
that
guys.
it.
conversation. But
He
for right now,
said
the
it
conversation is
4
null and
Not
void.
going to
times.
It's never happened.
happen.
Never happened, never will happen, never
I
has
see. So
happened.
your answer to that is he won't do it, so we don't have to worry about due
That's
process. That's your
1000%.
correct.
answer.
Without
I
a
That's
see.
doubt.
correct.
Without a
So let
doubt.
me just go back to your initial. No, you're wrong, of course, because things do
Wrong about
happen.
what?
Mistakes
No,
are
no.
made. People
Wrong
get
about
sent to
what?
our citizens, and Trump wants to find a way to do this, and
Bullshit.
I'm willing to bet
Bullshit.
you he will,
Bullshit.
because if he doesn't have to, he doesn't abide by this ruling, then he'll think there's nothing that will stop him from sending a U.S. citizen abroad because he can't do anything to get them back.
Why are we
Oh
talking
dear.
about something that's never happened?
Oh, you
Because
guys still
that
beating the
is
drum that you want
that's
Garcia
called the
back in your
slippery
country?
slope. This
What
is
slippery
called
slope? None of
once
us
you
see the
say that
future.
the
What's the
president
point?
does not have
It's
the
Matt,
never
authority.
happened. Let's change the topic. It's never happened. Let's change the
can I
topic.
add to
No,
this
no, no.
conversation?
Once you,
Not
well, I'm
yet.
just gonna let me just finish up. Once you say that the government has no obligation to do anything in these situations, then there is nothing stopping the government from doing what they've already said they want to do, which is send United States criminals abroad to an El Salvadorian prison. So stop saying it
But
won't
that's
Impossible.
happen
not what he
because
said,
Impossible.
what?
Tara.
No, he did
Hang
say
on,
that. He
gentlemen.
has said that on multiple
Impossible.
occasions. Now, Nelson, I'm going to go back to your initial points. The Supreme Court does have the right to tell. They cannot force the president to bring
Definitely
this
not.
guy back. I have
Definitely
agreed
not.
with that several times, but they do have the right to tell the president to take all steps, okay? And the president has laughed in their face about this.
Do you
And
know
his
why?
court filings have basically said, nah, nanny, you can't make me do anything,
Do you
okay?
know why?
This is wrong. He will be slapped down again by the Supreme Court, and then we will be in a constitutional crisis unless he does something. Now, it doesn't mean, once again, all he has to do is say, I asked him, he said no, that's the end of it, but he's not even willing to do that. Not
Listen, listen,
even
listen,
willing to
listen.
take a step. And that's why
Once
he will
again,
be violating the order.
once again, there's no order to begin with. Do you understand? The judiciary cannot compel the executive to carry out its executive functions. It goes against you know what? Let me remind you guys of the Constitution real quick. I actually have to just Google and pull it up because I don't remember all the articles off the top of my head, right? Number one, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1, Executive Power Clause. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. Very simple, right? Makes it clear that all executive authority, including immigration enforcement, foreign policy execution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, belongs to the president of the fucking United goddamn States. Okay? Only. Only.
Nelson, what you've just told us, and we all heard you say it, was the courts can't make the president do anything that the president doesn't want to. So we
That is
now
not
live
what
in
I
a
said.
dictatorship. That
That,
is
no, no, no,
exactly
no, you're
what you
right. No, no,
said.
no, 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 no,
That's
no, no.
exactly
Don't
what you
put
just
words in
said,
my
Nelson.
mouth.
We all heard it, and
And
Jonathan taped.
if you didn't hear it before, I'll explain it a little bit better. The Supreme Court, no court on U.S. soil can compel the president to carry out foreign policy. Period. That's what I said. So I hope you heard it clear this time. Period.
Once again, the court was very clear that there is some deference to be given, but the court was equally clear that it can tell the president to take steps. And that is the case. And if the president doesn't take any steps, then he is violating a Supreme Court order. And if he violates a Supreme Court order, where are we then? You know where we are then? We are in a dictatorship. We are in some sort of anarchy. And yes, the Supreme Court cannot force the president to do anything, but if that were to happen, then he would be violating a direct order. And if that happens, then all hell breaks loose because that is what is really called a constitutional crisis. This
Tara,
president has
Tara,
shown
Tara,
that
Tara,
he's,
Tara, I got a question for you.
yeah.
Why are you arguing? Why are you arguing with a guy, that clearly is loud and wrong and only been here for about 2 fucking months? And he think he knows anything. He knows the law better than you.
She literally
You're,
disagreed with me though.
he
She
think he
just
knows.
agreed with me.
And why is he
Like,
arguing?
Do
Why
you
is
need a
he
hearing aid?
arguing
yeah,
with people that
because
actually want to bring Garcia back into this country? Are you people
uh,
kidding me?
He needs a
Cindy,
hearing aid because she
no.
just
No,
agreed
Cindy,
with
no.
me.
we're
Let
not
me ask you a
arguing for
question.
the
Is
person. We're
Garcia
arguing
your
for the
martyr?
Cindy.
Is that your
We're
next
arguing
martyr,
for the
Garcia?
principle. The
No, no, no.
principle, not the person.
No.
That's what you don't understand.
Sorry. I do understand. I actually
No, you
understand
don't
more than you
understand
do on
because
this
you said,
point.
why am I arguing to bring this guy back to the country? As far as I'm concerned, if they get him back and they do a hearing the next day and they
There's no
deport him
yeah,
hearing
again,
for this guy.
that's fine.
This guy's bad
what do you
news,
mean no
okay,
hearing
guys?
for this guy? Tara, I mean, Cindy. So what
No,
do you mean
no,
no
no, no
hearing?
hearing. No
And
hearing.
you
No
see,
hearing.
that's the part right there.
Obviously, you don't know
That's
how you
the
can. Okay, let
that's
me
the
ask this
ignorance right
question.
there. That's ignorance.
No, I'm going to
But go
give you
ahead.
ignorance. I'm going to give you facts, buddy, okay?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
How's this? How's this? Was he involved with MS-13 gangs in El
No,
Salvador? Yes or
not
no?
no, no,
Wrong, he
Not
no.
yet.
He's only
was.
13.
Wrong,
No,
he
he was
was.
16 years old.
Yes,
He
he
was
In
was.
16
El
years old when he came. He
He
was
Salvador,
not.
no.
okay.
No,
The
not in
question
El
was,
Salvador. There's
was
never been
he?
evidence
And
of that. You're
Tara,
wrong.
you're
There's no
wrong.
evidence of
You're
that.
wrong. Yes, there is. I
Not
have it.
true.
No, there's not.
Not
No,
Okay,
true. No,
there's
there's
guys,
not.
not. No,
guys,
there's
you
not.
you
Not in
really
El
don't want to
Salvador.
you don't want to debate me on this one. Trust me.
What are you doing?
Again, again. Now I'm going to come in heavy and strong because I got all the facts. Okay, what I needed for this room. Was he or was he not an MS-13 member in El Salvador?
No,
Yes or no?
no
You're
No,
wrong.
evidence of that.
Tara. There is.
No,
So
there
no,
stop
there's
isn't.
right
In
not.
now,
fact,
You
Tara.
were
Get
in
out of
the
your
scared to go
feelings right
back.
now. Yes, he
where is
was.
your fact?
Now
Give us your facts.
I can't, unfortunately, on a public stage. But I'm
Can't
going
give
to
us
tell
your
you
facts
this.
and you're
I
coming in here
suggest
saying
you
you have the
listen,
facts.
Tara. You might be the smartest woman in the room, but you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. So
Listen,
hear me
what
out.
we know
Hear
is
me
in
out.
his
He was
petition.
an MS-13. Stop, Tara.
No,
Take a breather and listen for a change. Yes, he was. And there's only one way to get out of MS-13 gang. Do you know how you get out of the gang? Do you know how the only way you can get out of the gang? Answer the question.
he
Cindy, you're
I'm
wasn't.
wrong.
coming in
You're
You're
wrong
personal
wrong.
on
about your
you.
You're
Do
premise.
wrong,
you
Cindy.
know
You're
You're
wrong
how
wrong.
about
you
your
get
premise.
out
I
of
don't
that
even
You're
game?
understand.
wrong.
I've asked a question. Answer the goddamn question, Jonathan. How do you
You're
get
wrong,
out without
Cindy.
Googling it? How do you
Well,
get
You
out of
get
how
that
do I have to
game?
killed.
Google it? You she's talking
How
about
do you
You
death.
get
She's
out
dead.
of
talking about
that
death.
game?
She's
You
talking about
die.
death. It's what she's talking
How
about. But that's
do you get out of the
In a
MS-13 game?
I
box.
said it like
One
four
short
Only
times.
minute.
I
way
said it
out
like
is in
four.
a
One
I
short
said
box.
minute.
it.
There's only
Yo, I
one way
said it
out.
4 times. I said it
What?
4 times.
What?
But
What
I
is
said
it?
death 4 times.
What
But
kind of
once again,
death? What kind of death? What
In
kind
a
of death?
box.
what are you
In a
talking
No,
about?
no, no,
Death,
no,
box.
no.
Cindy.
Any
There's only
death
one
gets
kind
you
of
out of
death.
it.
No, guys. Who do they have to kill? A random
What?
person?
That's how you get out, Cindy?
That's how you get
No.
in.
No.
Yeah.
That's the right. It's how you get in on a random. How do you get out, buddy? How do you
In
get
a
out?
in a
You
box, gotta
don't.
kill your family member.
I
Only way
know.
out is
And
in a
know.
again, I'm
box.
coming in and I'm going to come in hot and heavy on all of you. You're only getting out of an MS-13 game when you kill one of your own family members. So until you realize that, you are never out of that game. So let's get that straight. And Mr. Mata Garcia over there has two beatings on his wife, too. Okay? Let's not go there. Let's not make him the
She's
martyr.
right.
Change your
She's right.
martyr. Change your goddamn martyr right now. Because if that's
She's
the
right.
best you got on that guy, then you got a serious fucking problem. And you better get your heads out of your asses. Now,
I
hardcore the
Yeah.
martyr.
let
Why are
me
you so
Change your
passionate about
respond.
this,
martyr.
Cindy? Cindy, why are you so
Let me
passionate about
respond
this?
to the
Because
No.
fact.
Why
Yeah,
are
yeah,
I don't,
y'all
yeah.
so
Let's some
John,
facts.
passionate?
John, I don't
Yo, man,
speak.
Fitty,
Let me
man, Fitty.
John,
respond to
Jonathan,
One second,
I
one
don't
mic, guys,
speak.
one mic, guys, one mic. Guys, if Cindy, myself, and Tara are speaking, all right, we're speaking. All right, so we're gonna open the mic up and let everyone else speak, but keep your damn mics muted, okay? Obviously, you don't know the protocol here in DTN, so we're going back and forth. Okay, so let's go, Cindy. Cindy, go ahead.
how about can I respond to Cindy or is she done? Or I don't know if
No,
she
I
No,
want
go
Cindy.
right
No,
ahead. Because this
Okay.
time you're out
So
of
in
your league on
Cindy,
this one. You don't want to
Cindy,
debate me on this one.
Cindy,
Go ahead.
in his petition, the court acknowledged the reason why.
He doesn't get petition. Get
Can
him the
you? No,
fuck
no, no,
out.
no, no, no,
Get
no.
him out.
Cindy,
Out.
stop. Cindy.
O-U-T
In
out.
his Cindy, let me talk. You wanted me to talk. You want me to respond, but you don't want to listen.
I don't
In
care what
the
your response
hearing
is
that
to
he
this one.
had, where the court decided he should not be sent back to El Salvador, here were the facts. His family owned some sort of restaurant, Puposa. I don't know what that is exactly, but that's what
Mm-hmm.
they said. There was
Mm-hmm.
a gang named the 18 Barrio Gang that was trying to shake down his family, and he was afraid of that gang. They moved
Bullshit.
several times.
Bullshit.
This is
I
what
don't
the
care what
court
you're reading.
agreed.
It's bullshit.
But
It's
it doesn't
bullshit.
matter. You're telling me you have no facts, and I'm telling you what the court
Really?
agreed
Trust
with.
me. Trust me.
This is what the
When
court,
I get hot and heavy on something,
Cindy,
Jonathan Bing knows
Cindy,
I got
this is
facts.
what was in the legal
I don't give a
filing.
shit.
I see. So you don't care what the
No,
court
I know.
said or
I
what
know
was
the
agreed
reality.
to.
I know the facts now.
You
Now
believe
I
in
got
some
the
facts that you
facts.
are incapable of giving us. That's it.
Correct.
Fantasy
Correct.
facts that you have come up with.
Correct.
I'm telling you
Correct.
she
what's
she
in the
doesn't.
court
Wait,
filing.
one second. So hold on,
Correct.
Tara. Tara, she
Jesus.
doesn't have fantasy facts. I know where she's getting her facts from, but I just and she's
Jonathan,
getting the
don't even
facts from.
say a name.
She's getting
Jonathan,
it from
don't do
a.
it.
I'm not going to do it. I'm
Okay.
telling you, you're getting the facts from a reliable source, but I think
Thank
it's
you.
biased. I think it's biased.
No, it's
She's
not.
getting it from.
No, it's not. You know it and I know it.
Who's the
Uh,
Cut it out.
source,
Cut
Jonathan?
it out.
no,
Cut it
no,
out
I'm not
right
gonna say it.
now.
Very high up, very high up. I'm not gonna talk about it.
How
I'm not
can
gonna
it
say
be
it.
reliable and biased?
No, I'm talking about supposedly reliable. Yeah, absolutely. Let's
Really?
go.
Really,
No,
Bing?
you know what I'm talking about.
Really,
Come on,
Bing?
Cindy, I'm
Stop.
talking about
Cut your
conservative.
shit.
I'm talking about conservative. I'm talking about conservatives.
Come on.
Listen, Jonathan, Tara and you have no leg to stand on. You
Actually, we
understand?
do. We
Not
have
on
plenty
this
of leg to
one.
stand
You
on.
Not
Yeah,
have
on this one.
you
yeah,
don't
actually, we
even
do.
know the Constitution.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't even know the
You
Constitution.
know what's crazy? We have judges. We have 9 Supreme Court judges rule
Uh huh.
the way we said. We had a judge rule
And what did they rule?
yesterday, and we had a
And what did,
judge rule.
and what did they rule?
May I
What did they
speak to
rule?
that point, please,
No,
Jonathan?
No,
man,
wait, my
Fitty,
brother. Give
yo,
me a
bro,
second, man. Give me a
man,
second.
Fitty, listen. I don't want to boot you, bro, because I want to hear from you. But you're gonna
Well,
have to just put your
Pick
hands,
a new
all
sit
one.
on
right.
How
your
about
hands for a
this?
little bit.
Why don't you guys pick a real innocent man? How's that? Let's find a real innocent man and let's find him or her, but let's find him and then I'll get on your side. How's that? I'll be on your side in a lot of things right now,
Okay,
Jonathan.
okay, okay. Let's
But
go.
this one,
Let's go
no.
with the barber. Let's go with the gay barber.
Man, guys, I don't want to talk about gay fucking
No,
barbers.
no, no,
Let me
no,
make
no.
my
Let's
point.
go with
Let
the
me
gay
make my
Don't have
point.
barber.
any don't have any information on him, so can't go there.
Let me just make
Oh,
my points.
I
My
don't.
points, right? Let me make my points real quick, because Tira and Jonathan, clearly don't understand the U.S. Constitution. So I'm going to help you out a little bit, right? So I've done some more digging just to pull up some more clauses from the Constitution. So the second thing I'm going to talk about right now is Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. This deals with treaty and appointments clause, right? It says, and it's referring to the President of the United States. Who the fuck? Yo, Rochelle, I mean, are you having a heart attack? You're breathing a little bit heavy. Can you mute your mic? Anyways, he shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate to make treaties and he shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls. This supports the argument that all diplomatic activity, including negotiations with El Salvador, falls squarely under executive power. The Supreme Court has zero standing when it comes to that. Hence why in their 9-0 ruling, they did not compel him, right? There wasn't any, potential injunction or whatever the case may be if he didn't comply with the law, nothing, because they understand that, right? Number three, it's a big one. This is Article 2, Section 3. It's called the Take Care Clause, right? The president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. This reinforces, right, the president's power to enforce immigration law, which includes who enters or is removed from the country, right? Courts cannot execute this. It belongs solely to the President of the United States. Okay, I got another one for you. This is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. This is the naturalization clause. It says the Congress shall have power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. This means that Congress has the power to create immigration laws. Very important. But enforcement still remains with the executive. Do you know what this means? This means courts do not have the power to create or enforce immigration rules. You understand? The judiciary doesn't create immigration rules.
This is an
Congress does.
immigration rule, Nelson. And surprisingly, once again, it's the business people who get it wrong. We initiated
What are
a
you talking about?
contract with this country, meaning he was not extradited. And I encourage you to look up that word because it seems like you're ignorant of that fact.
The
So, first
executive can
of
do
all,
that.
we initiated a contract with this country. As
We can do
JB
that.
said, we are paying them $6 million to hold these individuals.
We
Therefore,
can do
would
that.
you engage with business with anyone if you say, oops, I accidentally sent you, I don't know, extra wood or extra materials, and they're going to tell you, well, sorry, Jonathan, sorry, Nelson, I don't have to send you shit back because it's over the state lines, and you
It does.
just operate in Georgia, and I'm in Texas. Nobody would fucking do that. So stop with the bullshit. You're making America seem weak as fuck, as if we can't tell somebody in a third world fucking country, send that bitch back right goddamn now. So Donald Trump is a cuck. He's gonna
So,
sit there
so
smiling
here's
with the
what.
motherfucker in the goddamn White House, and he
Let me
can't tell
explain.
him,
Let me explain
bring that
something to you.
motherfucker back right now.
Let me
You're
let me
talking about
let
the
me
Donald
explain.
Trump that tells Putin what to do, the Donald Trump that
Right.
tells you what to fucking do,
Right.
the Donald Trump
Right.
that tells Republicans what to do.
Uh
He
huh.
can't tell this man, bring this motherfucker back right
Right.
goddamn
Right.
now, or I'm
Right.
gonna blow up your fucking country. Now
100%.
Trump is a fucking cuck. What
Right.
kind of business do you people do? You would
Right.
tell that
Right.
contractor, bring my shit back right
Wait,
now,
Jay,
Right.
put
or
a
I'm gonna
muzzle
send
Right.
on
the
that
fuck out of
mouth.
here.
No, let her finish.
Stop
Let
with
her
your
Hey,
finish.
weak
Let her
ass
finish.
bullshit.
listen,
Okay.
Stop it.
Right.
This is
Mickey,
Right.
thank
insane.
you, thank you,
Stop it.
thank you, thank
Yo,
you.
Right.
yo, Daphne, don't say thank you. Please don't mute her while she's talking.
Okay. 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 Let me respond to Miki real quick. So Miki, listen. Um, the president, the executive, entering the United States into a contract with another country falls within his power. He can absolutely fucking do that. Okay? Nothing you said is illegal. Nothing you said is wrong. He has every fucking right to do that. Now, the president, right? Asking El Salvador, hey, you want to return the guy? El Salvador saying no. Absolutely. The president can, if he wants to, force El Salvador to return this guy. He doesn't want to. He's not interested in doing that.
Well, then just fucking
Right?
admit that.
So,
Stop with the bullshit.
one second, one
We
second.
don't have any
I'm
jurisdiction because
responding. I'm
you just made
responding.
a point. No, you've been talking too
Wait,
much.
I'm
We
responding to
sent
you.
his ass over
Wait.
there. You're
One
acting like
second.
this is immigration. We
One
sent him
second.
over there.
One
Therefore,
second. Calm
you
down.
just said it. If
Relax.
Trump wanted him to come back, he would fucking be back here. End
Relax.
of story, period. Just admit
Relax,
that.
relax. I think the administration's already admitted it. I literally just played you a recording from yesterday's White House press conference calling this guy a goddamn motherfucking terrorist. Clearly, they don't want to bring him back, right? So the administration is not being a pussy. Trump is not being a cuck. None of that bullshit, right? They're just not willing to go the extra mile to bring this dude back. They think he's a fucking terrorist. So
Well, then
nothing.
don't blame the judiciary and say there's a breakdown in this and we have jurisdiction over this. Just
There's no
fucking admit
breakdown.
it.
Not a
Say it with your
terrorist.
full
There's
chest.
no
Not a
break.
terrorist.
There's
Trump
no.
does
Listen,
not
he's
want
a
to see
bad
us
guy.
attacked.
He's a bad guy.
She won't
He's a
even let me. She
bad,
won't even
bad
let me.
guy.
She won't even let me talk. And everything she's
He's
saying
a
is
bad guy.
bullshit.
You want to bring back
Everything
a
she's
bad
saying is
guy into your
nonsense.
country?
You
You want to
Right?
bring a
elected a
bad
fucking
guy?
bad guy. You elected a
Yeah.
coochie grabber and a sexual assault dude. So
Okay.
don't give
All
me
right.
that shit.
Listen.
Y'all like
Hey,
fucking criminals who commit financial fraud, lie on their damn taxes,
what are
get
you
in trouble with
talking
the
about?
IRS. So
What are you
please spare
talking
me.
about?
Don't talk
Stop.
about this anti-criminal bullshit because you fucking love the shit out of white criminals. Hegseth has white nationalist tattoos. You're not talking
Oh,
about
there we go
deporting
with
his
the white
pussy ass.
again. There we go with the
Uh,
white. Oh, there's
Kushner
the
was a
white
goddamn
again.
slumlord having
Okay.
fucking rats and shit in the goddamn apartments. Y'all don't give a fuck about following the fucking law. You give a fuck about following Donald Trump. We would
That's
have
your.
more respect for you
No,
if you fucking admitted that.
there's a lot of things I'm very
That
disappointed in him.
that's your president
See,
too, by the way, Kiki.
it doesn't matter. You don't have to defend that, Nelson. There's a lot of things that we don't like that he's done. How's that? How's that?
Sure, like what?
Where do you want me to start?
Well,
Where would
go
you like
ahead and
me to
start
start?
anywhere you want. Go
Going
I
ahead.
to
don't like
address
anything he's doing right now,
Minnesota
okay?
tariffs
There's no
for what?
game plan here. There's no game plan, and we're riding off our hips right now. Don't you think we know that? Don't you think we all know that as Republicans? Don't you think every Republican knows that right now? So
I
where
don't
do you
know.
want to
I
go?
don't know.
Yeah, I think you do
think they
know.
do.
No, Cindy,
Okay?
I've
everyone's
been
defending
hearing
I think
everything.
they do
4DHS
know.
all the
But
time.
here's the problem.
4DHS.
Here's the problem. The constituents are not, if let me tell you something. They're standing by his side right now. But if he doesn't make some quick changes really fast and pull a fucking rabbit out of his ass, they'll have problems. And you know it, and I know it. We all know that. But don't sit and tell me that a guy that's a hardcore criminal, you want to bring him back to this country. No, you don't. No, you don't. Trust me on this one. You don't. But no,
What?
I'm not booty clapping for a lot of things that he's doing right now. Because I don't like flying off the seat of my pants.
Cindy, you booty clap.
Yeah, booty clap. I learned a new word. Thank you. Okay, so don't go there with me. I'm
Yeah,
extremely disappointed in a lot of things, but at the end
Miki's
of
just
the
talking bullshit.
day, this is where we are. This is where we are, whether we like it or not. And like I said, he better pull a rabbit out of his ass and make things right really fast. And there's only one thing he could do to make this country go back into Trump land is you cut those taxes immediately. And then you'll see how much Americans start going, I don't care about the tariffs. I just got 50% of my taxes back. You want to see a 360? That's all he needs to do. Boom, he's back in action.
180, 180, 180.
Then we're gonna
180,
file
sorry.
bankruptcy as a
So,
country.
1230.
Cindy,
1230.
Cindy, let me ask you a question, Cindy, because did you hear what Joe Rogan said? Joe Rogan isn't feeling this either. Joe
Listen to
Rogan
me. There's a
spoke.
lot. There's a
No,
lot
I'm
that
talking
aren't doing.
about what's going on. I'm talking about no, I'm talking about what's
Jonathan,
happening with
Jonathan,
this.
Jonathan, we know that. We all know that, okay? You'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind to not see what's going on here, okay?
What's that?
All
But
you
I'm
got
just
to
saying
do
Joe
is
Rogan
know.
doesn't
Can't
All you
like
got to
what's
do
happening
is
blind.
with
know that the
Chicago.
A
market. All you got
lot
to
of
do is
us
know
don't
that the
love what's
market
going
will
on,
correct.
but it's happening.
No, Joe Rogan's talking about El Salvador and CCOT.
Yep.
He doesn't like what Trump is doing.
Look it. When we
Last
get
time
When
to
I
did he
that,
checked,
say
when we
that?
get to that point,
last time I
why
checked,
are we
Joe
debating
Rogan wasn't fucking
something?
Albert Einstein. Like the fuck
Okay,
out of here. Like
Not
he's from
just that. Joe Rogan said
he's
as
from
long
New
as he wasn't
Massachusetts. He was
MS.
okay. Joe Rogan
Just
failed at
heard
9.
we Jonathan played the Joe Rogan thing. He said he
the
was a little
like
who gives
Yeah,
a
concerned
Now
and
shit
and
about
he
El
the
said
now
as
Salvador
impact
long
prison,
of
as he
like
COVID.
that
hold
kind
on.
of
wasn't a
You
shit.
gang
Is
hated
that
member, you
you hated
guys.
Joe Rogan when he was a Trump supporter. Now you like him.
No,
Like
we don't like him.
make up your
No,
mind.
no, it's not that. We're just
Which
saying
one
even
is it? Do you like the
conservative.
guy or you don't like the guy?
We're
I
saying even
personally
conservatives.
don't care
Well,
one way or the other.
one second, guys. I want Man Fitty because he's been trying to get it. Man Fitty, go ahead. All right, we're gonna move on from Man Fitty. All right, go ahead. Back to you, Cindy. I guess Man Fitty's not here.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you got to get.
Who's that?
Sorry, that was I accidentally played the Joe Rogan thing. My bad.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I got it, Cindy.
All I'm saying is, look, you want to debate, but let's debate what's going on now. Let's not debate what might happen down the road, which I highly doubt we're going to take our homegrowns and put them in another country. But if you ask me my personal opinion, and you're a horrific criminal, I don't care where you send them. How's that?
Cindy, let
Send
me
them
ask
to
you a
death
question.
row. I don't give two shits. If
Cindy,
you're a horrific criminal, get out whether you're American or not. Put them up.
Cindy,
Lock them all
Cindy,
up.
Cindy, let me ask you a question.
Make your country safe again.
Cindy, here's my question for you. If they arrested an American citizen and they received the birth certificate and a social security card, and they arrested, and they still arrested him, said, and kept him on an immigration hold, ICE hold, even though they had his birth certificate and it was verified and a social security card, but they still held him. How would you feel about that?
Are we still talking about Garcia?
No, we're not talking. Cindy, that's not. See, it doesn't matter who we're talking about.
But
Okay,
that's that. But that's your
Garcia,
honor right now. So
no,
go
no,
ahead.
no, no. We're talking about the Garcia is not an American citizen, Cindy. So no, obviously, I'm not talking about him. I asked the question. The question I asked was, if they arrested an American citizen and they had proof that he was an American citizen, they had the birth certificate and the social security card, but yet I still refused to release him. How would you feel about that?
That's a problem. I've said that the other night. That's a major
Now,
problem.
Cindy, what if that same person told the trooper that he was an illegal immigrant? That's
No,
what
he
the
did not. He
report
did not.
Then he's
said.
got to
That's what
go.
the
No,
report
no,
said.
no, no,
Listen,
no, 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 no,
whether we
Cindy,
like
Cindy,
it,
that
whether we like it or
Jesus
not, we
Christ.
can go back to
Everyone has
listen.
an excuse about
Why don't we
everything.
go back to the days of Mitt
It's not an
Romney that I
excuse, it's a
did
piece
not
of
vote for?
information.
Hold
No,
on.
no.
Why don't we go back to the days of Mitt Romney that I did not vote
I
for? By the
voted
way,
for Mitt Romney.
I did not vote for Mitt Romney because I hated the way he ran Massachusetts. But with that being said, what did Mitt Romney say back in the day? If you're illegal, you're illegal. You cannot be here.
Cindy, he was legal. He's legal. Okay, Cindy, and just because he spoke very poor English, he was legal. And when the
Who are we
trooper asked
talking
him,
about right now? Who are we talking about?
okay, you know what? It's called, you know
Just tell
what,
me who we're talking about, Jonathan.
Terry, you want to explain that case?
No, I just want to know who we're
What
talking.
happened,
Lopez.
Cindy?
Go ahead.
What happened?
Oh,
Lopez
okay.
Gomez, I think, is his name.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't remember
Can we
his
get his
first
name
name.
straight? Lopez, Gomez.
No,
What
no,
is
no.
it?
I think his name is Lopez
Let's
Gomez.
go,
The
man.
last two names is what I'm trying to say. There was a person. Let's say Lopez, but I think his last two names are Lopez Gomez.
Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez.
Okay, so I'm right. It was Lopez Gomez. He was arrested. There is actually no evidence he said he was illegally in America. That's not clear because he doesn't speak English that well. He is a United States citizen. He was born here. He has a birth certificate, a social
Wait,
security
so he's
number,
born here, but he can't speak English?
because he went back to Mexico when he was one and he came back about 4 years ago and his English is not that
Oh,
strong.
you mean he was born here? He was
He's a
born
US
here
citizen. He was born here.
because his mother gave birth to him in this
It
country.
doesn't really matter. We don't have
Okay,
any law that would, he's a
Yes, he
US
was born
citizen.
in Georgia. He was born in
okay,
Right. And
but
now
Georgia.
he
he
grew
lives
up,
in
but he didn't grow
Georgia.
up in America, right?
He's an American citizen with a social security number and a birth certificate in America. That is an American citizen, regardless of what your personal views might be on that. It's
Mm-hmm.
irrelevant. He was arrested because he was in a car with somebody else who they thought was illegal, not him. It's unclear exactly what he said to the trooper, but he was arrested. He was detained. ICE put a hold on him, okay? Even though he was a United States citizen, his mother actually, he went to court. His mother brought his birth certificate and his social security card to court. The judge said, "Oh my God, yes, this is a social security. This is real." But the judge then said it was in Florida that he could not be released, even though he was an American citizen, because ICE had put a hold on him. Okay? And mind you, I want to say one other thing. The law under which ICE had arrested him, something about an unauthorized alien in Florida, was on a temporary restraining order. In other words, that law was not supposed to be used for anything at that point. ICE refused to let his mother speak to him, and they also refused to let him go. What do you think about that?
He
I,
has
I
been released.
okay. I don't know. I'm getting two stories, so I don't know. Like, has he been released or hasn't he been
Yes, he
released?
has been
Okay,
released.
then they've done the right thing.
No, he wasn't released at the time. He was released
Okay,
several
no, he
hours
wasn't
late.
released. Is
He
he
is
released
released right
now?
now.
Of course he's going to be released 7 hours later. The guy
Okay.
gave false information to the officers. I mean, I understand he can't speak English, but dude, they asked you, "Are you a citizen?" You said
There's no
no. I
proof.
mean,
There's no proof he ever said that, Nelson. There's no
But
proof he ever said
okay,
that.
listen,
so
listen, listen,
okay,
listen,
they
listen,
they
listen.
made their case. They released him. He's an American citizen. Out you go, back into the country.
Done
Period.
deal. So I don't understand what these liberals are bringing this thing up for. Like,
Listen,
what's the big
what
I
deal?
mean,
I've said,
sometimes we spend 7 hours in customs going from one country to the
what
next.
You
Like,
what
come
I have
goddamn
on.
right.
what I have said several times, and what no one has disputed, is that we now know that Donald Trump did not even bother, because Nelson admitted it. Donald Trump didn't ask for Mr. Garcia's release,
Now
right?
it's
When
Trump's fault.
He didn't ask for it, right?
He should have
He
Nelson
waited.
literally
said
asked
that.
for it on
So
national
now we're
TV.
back to Garcia, right?
No, now we're back to Garcia. Donald Trump
Okay.
did not
Did
ask
the
for his release.
president,
Cindy.
Can I
let me
finish,
just get this
please?
straight. Oh my God.
Donald Trump
His
did
own
not ask
president,
for his release. At Pam Bondi, we played that. This, we're not asking for anything. We're not doing anything. He's a criminal. He's M13. No way on earth we're doing anything. That violates a Supreme Court order,
Oh
right?
my gosh,
Because
like you still with this
the
bullshit. Like
president
I've
of
no,
been
this
it
country,
quoting,
violates the order
I've
the
because at
quoted
least he
president
was
of
you.
El
supposed to
I
ask.
don't
Salvador
get it.
says
And he has
he is a
acknowledged that he
criminal.
did not ask. His administration has acknowledged he didn't even bother to ask. That is a clear violation of facilitate release from custody. You can
His
say all you
people
want to,
have
but the
been
president
facilitating.
basically violated a Supreme Court order, and you're all cool with that because the guy is a scumbucket potentially, and that might be
Well,
true. And like I
do you
said,
think he's a nice guy, Tara?
Jonathan and I have said frequently, you can bring him back to the United States, have your hearing, and then throw him out, send him back to Guatemala or some other country where he's
But
allowed
the
to be.
That's
president,
racist. It's El
not our
Salvador.
president, his
No.
president.
He's not allowed to be deported to El Salvador. There was the one place he wasn't allowed to be deported to. That was a mistake. So if you can find another country, that's not racist.
Okay,
Find
wait a
another
minute. So why was it? This is a good one. Tira, why wasn't he allowed to be deported back to El
because he
Salvador?
wasn't
Because his
allowed
gang
because
member rivals will
he
get him.
wasn't because no, not a rival
Yes, he
because he
was.
Wait a
said in
second, Tira. why
Let her
wasn't
finish.
he?
let
She's
me
answering.
finish, Diana.
She's
But you
answering,
don't.
and you just
Not
my
only
wait
do
a
you not
minute.
have a
I
gotcha, you don't
jumped
know
in
what you're
because
talking
everybody
about.
else was jumping in, so I redirected.
Diana,
I'm a good
Diana,
moderator.
let
Good
me finish.
Lord.
Diana, let me finish. You don't know what you're talking about. Once
Yes.
again, it's really sad, okay? Because the judge made a ruling on this. That's why they said you can't be deported to El Salvador because he said that there was a gang, 18 Barrio, I think was the name of the gang, that had targeted him and his entire family. And no matter how many times they moved, they were coming after him. And the judge agreed with that. Not M13. This was a completely unrelated gang. He said nothing about he was in a gang. And the court order said, okay, we believe you. We believe you. And so you cannot be deported to El Salvador because that's the one place that you were at greater risk of something bad happening because this gang is against you and they targeted your family. Got
My
it?
turn. Okay,
Not that we
so
know that's to be the truth, but okay.
okay, but listen, this is my interpretation of the case, right? In 29, so it's Barrio 18 is the gang that he stated in 2019 when he was detained for gang affiliation, when he was under TPS protection, right? He stated that he could not go back to El Salvador because of Barrio 18, right? So they took his TPS and they made it a withholding removal. Now, that is taking from one classification to another because it they were supposed to deport him in 2019 when they charged him with gang affiliation, but he pleaded not to do so because he was afraid of this gang. So they put him under that other classification, which may or may not be covered under the executive order that claimed anyone affiliated with MS 13 would be under the Terrorist Executive Order Act. So that's my understanding of things. Okay? So very, very different framework.
That's exactly the same as I just said. I said the court held that he could not be deported back to El Salvador because he was in legitimate fear that that gang, Barrio 18, was going to take revenge against him because he had been targeted by them beforehand. That's what I said. So the court said he
You know,
can't
the
go back.
difference here, respectfully, is that we are painted right now as America as people who are violating rights when we're literally here accommodating people who are coming from countries where they're seeking asylum from. So it's strange to me. I understand having the discussion, right? And I love I love this. We've talked about it before, the going through the facts and as if we're debating this like a real court. I love that. But to just jump and say that the current administration is operating illegally and unjustly, and I mean, I'm sorry, y'all, but that's not a narrative that I sign up for. Not right now.
You
I
know,
have a question.
Diana,
I have a
go ahead, Rashawn.
question.
one
So
second, guys. Wait. I've been
go
trying to
ahead,
get.
Billy.
Please. Okay, thank you very much. I
Go ahead,
appreciate you.
Billy.
Okay. So I had to pull it up to figure out. I was trying to pull up verbiage from the actual Supreme Court order to see if what Tara is saying is true. That Trump, violated the order. This is bullshit. Okay. This is a quote from the actual order. It says here. The government is hereby directed to take all reasonable and appropriate steps to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure his case is handled as it would have been had the improper removal not occurred. Right? It also struck down part of the district court's order. Right? It says the use of the term effectuate in this context is ambiguous and potentially exceeds the bounds of judicial authority under Article 3. The matter is remanded to the district court for clarification consistent with this opinion. Okay, now here's why Trump did not technically violate the order. Technically, right? It was said that the administration removed barriers to entry. Essentially, it would parole him in, right, and detain him again if he appears at a port of entry. This was said by the administration, right? No law or clause in the order required them to retrieve him from foreign custody, right? The court itself clarified it was not mandating, a retrieval or whatever the case may be, because they could, it could cross judicial bounds, judicial authority, which is why they struck down the lower court's order, right? Trump's administration has said they're not blocking reentry if he appears at a U.S. port of entry or a U.S. embassy, right? They would accept him, process him upon return, blah, 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 blah. And they also argued, and this is the attorney general, they argued that facilitate does not require diplomatic coercion, right? Which again is an executive function reserved for the president of the United States. They have not violated anything in that order, Tara.
Yes, they have. Now,
They have not violated.
what Pam Bondi and the DOJ have said in subsequent filings, which I guess you haven't read, is that facilitate, as you've mentioned, only means not releasing him from custody, not trying to get him released from custody, but just saying we're not going to put any barriers in place were he to somehow and miraculously
Just like I
occur.
said,
No, but that is not what facilitate release from custody means, and I think you know that, right? What it means is at least he has to ask. He has to talk to El Salvador, see if there's anything that can be worked out, right? He doesn't have to get him back, but he has to take some reasonable steps to facilitate not his release from custody in El Salvador. That's what
listen,
they
the
wanted
the
him to
attorney
do.
general, the attorney general of the United States knows a whole lot more
No,
than every
Pam Bondi is not,
than
she's
every
not even a good lawyer. Come on,
she's the
Nelson.
attorney general of the
Doesn't really
United
matter.
States.
She's a
Hey,
shill
hey,
for Trump.
She
We
is
all
the
know
attorney
that.
general of the
But it
United
doesn't
States.
matter. She herself
She is
acknowledged
the
we're not doing
attorney general.
anything.
Attorney general.
And do you
hey,
understand that the
Attorney
DOJ has now
general.
lost? They have now lost two subsequent court hearings about this because all the court said is, tell us the steps you've taken to get him out of there. That's all they've said. They haven't said what you have to do. They've said, tell us. And the Trump administration has said, nah, we're not telling you any steps. We don't think we have to do a damn thing. That's
The
why
Trump
they are
administration
violating the
hasn't
order.
lost anything. They haven't lost
there he
anything.
Oh no,
is.
It
now we have
hasn't gone to the
non-lawyer
Supreme
coming in to
Court.
pretend.
So
Remember due
neither are you.
process.
You're a
Everybody
non-lawyer
remember
too.
due
So
process.
so so
Let's
so
remember
so
that
again,
Snarky Puppy was the one who
everything that
said
Nelson just
nobody
said was
has due
100% correct.
process.
The
Due
president
process.
cannot be
Remember?
compelled to effectuate his
Nobody
constitutional
has said he
duties.
can be
You would
compelled. You have
expect
not even
you would
listened.
expect you would expect the Supreme Court to exercise some discretion and exercise not try and engage in another co-equal branches of government's legal duties and executive constitutional duties and thereby complying with the Constitution and Supreme Court mandate. So, again, everything that Nelson said, I'm just tired of hearing you, Tira. Like, what
You don't know anything. You were
you
the
know the
one who
full
said the
canon of
other
the
Yeah,
night
law.
no,
that none of
one
these
second.
people had anything to
So is
talk
One second.
about.
anybody? Here's
One
the
mic, Tara.
question.
Tara, one mic. Tara, one mic. TC, we're not doing personal attacks here tonight, bro. You talking about you tired of hearing her. You
Oh,
know.
stop it with the personal text.
No, bro. We're
Jonathan,
not doing
no,
that. We're
no.
not doing that. We're not doing it. We're
Oh,
just
I
not.
see.
We're
So he
not
can
doing
call Nelson
personal
dummy.
attacks, crackhead. So shut up.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
That
There's
was
your
yeah.
punishment.
ironic.
Come on, Mickey. You can't
Here's
do.
my
Wow.
question,
That's
Tara.
Where was
really
I
a
personally
personal
Come on,
attack.
attacking?
Mickey. You can't do personal attacks.
That
I
all
mean,
shows
it
how to
is
do.
So
midnight, like
Oh, my
Nelson,
bad. I
werewolf
didn't hear
hour.
you.
Nelson, I have a question. So, the Supreme Court, they decided that for Trump to try and send people back to El Salvador, now they have to give them due process before they actually send them, like futuristic people. Is that not correct?
That's not correct. The
That
I'm
Supreme
is
not talking
Court
to
correct.
you.
upheld the
I'm not
Supreme Court
talking to
upheld
you.
the Trump administration's
Can you
right to
just shut up?
deport people
TC, can
under
you
the
shut up?
TC, that wasn't for you, man. She asked
Yeah, you're
a
not
specific question.
correct. Sorry.
Yeah, TC, don't. I don't want to take that badge. You can't
Let
unmute,
me ask
bro.
you a question, Jonathan. Are any of them getting court hearings?
Do what you gotta do, Jonathan. Do what you
Jonathan,
gotta
is
do,
any of them
bruh.
getting? Are any of them getting court hearings? Yes or
Yeah, one
no?
second.
People
I
who
gotta
are
do what I
the
gotta do.
people who've already
I
sent
gotta do what I
there,
gotta do. Hold on.
Cindy.
No,
Tara,
he's lit,
my
Jonathan. He's
question was
lit. Give
very
him a
simple.
pass.
Is any of
Yes.
them getting court hearings
Who
now?
are they? Who are they?
Anybody that's
Jonathan,
taken?
calm down, bro. It's not a
Is
big
there
deal.
anybody that's
Bro,
been
don't tell me
taken?
comment on my stage, bro. Don't do that.
Is
Bro, stop
anybody?
getting triggered.
Wait, wait,
Is anybody
Cindy.
from ICE that's been taken in? Are they getting a court hearing? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you
They
very much.
should. I
My
mean,
guy
that's
is
what the
my
court
Tara.
ruled.
My guy is in Hyannis right now. That's where they've got him in Hyannis, and he's going to go in front of a court. He's going in front of a judge. They are
The
not going to
Supreme
deport
Court
him
just
back.
ruled
They are
that all
not
these people are
going.
entitled to
Hold
Tara,
habeas
on,
and notice.
Tierra.
can I
Slow
finish,
down, Tierra.
Tara? I asked a question. Now I'm going to answer the question. Yes, the guy that does my tile is going in front of a judge. And then they will make a decision after being here for 12 years, working here, paying taxes, whether they'll send him back to Brazil or they'll let him stay. So he's getting a court hearing. He is getting a
Okay,
court hearing.
Cindy,
He's
is that
put in
based on
Hyannis, Massachusetts right now. And
based on the Supreme Court decision
I have
telling the
no clue.
administration
I'm just telling
that
you, I
they have
spoke
to
to him.
allow due
I
Angry
process?
bird.
spoke
Quit
to him
interrupting.
yesterday, and he is
Oh,
getting
shut
to
up.
go in front of the judge. Period.
Okay, so
That is
And
the
I
law.
my
advised
That has
him,
always been
I
the
have
so
law. What
advised
are you
him to
my
talking
get,
about?
reason for
you know, let me
asking the
finish,
question.
because no one
Michelle,
knows
Michelle, I still have a
anybody that's
response
been
for you.
taken out but me
Okay,
right
Nelson.
now in this room, right? So I'm giving you facts here again. I stay in my lane when I'm supposed to be, stay in my lane. He is going in front of a judge. His wife has brought all his tax returns, everything, all his years of working, all letters from good people that say he's never done anything wrong, right? We are absolutely having his back on this one. He's a very good guy. Now, the law still reads you're illegal. And if I have to hear it one more time in Massachusetts, I'm going to scream. But the truth is, he's an illegal. And it's
But
illegal
Cindy,
to be here if you're
I
illegal.
asked Nelson about the ones that they want to send to
So
El
what is the
Salvador.
judge
I,
going to
Go
I
go
do?
ahead,
think he's
What
Nelson.
is the
legal.
judge going to do when he gets in front of the judge? What can the judge possibly do? If it stand on the merits of being illegal and you're illegal and you're here illegally, what is the judge going to have to do, Tara? Even though he's got great letters from a lot of good people, he's never got into trouble and has had an ongoing business for over 12 years and has paid income tax in 12 years, owns a home here, has two children here that are American citizens. What is the judge going to have to rule?
Ma, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, if the executive says he's gone and he's illegal, he's gone and he's illegal. That's
They're
it.
gonna have to hold the fact that illegal means illegal. And that's the sad part.
Well, even
Because
the
there's
overstayed
not a
visas need to
second,
go too, because they're not here legally as well.
what's that?
The overstayed visas, they need to go too. They're
Of
not
Listen,
here
course,
legally.
of course
Let
they
me
But
do, Michelle. I
anyway,
agree with you
back to what I
100%.
asked you,
But
Nelson.
let me
I'm
explain due
saying
process.
there should be a
No, I asked you
secondary.
about the Supreme Court
The thing that
decision
I'm
about
upset.
anyone that Trump
Hmm.
wants to send over there. Do they now have to give them due process? Isn't
Let
that
let
something
let
that was decided?
Let Cindy finish what she's saying, and I don't worry, I
Okay,
got you.
All I'm
I
saying to you
got
is
you.
there should have been
okay.
a secondary plan for people that have been here for quite a while now, have been law abiding citizens, have children here, has paid their taxes. There should be a secondary game plan for these people. But unfortunately, no matter how many times I've said this to the lawyer, it doesn't matter because they come back with the same answer. But Cindy, he's here illegal. No matter what, he's here illegal. So when you keep hearing the same thing over and over again in a massive Democratic state like Massachusetts, where's the judge going to go? If the judge has to go by the rights, illegal means illegal. Now, if the judge wants to put empathy into this case and think with his heart, then maybe it'll go a different way.
Absolutely not.
But
Impossible.
I doubt it because, again, like going back to Mitt Romney, when you're illegal, you're illegal. You're here illegally. So the chances that they won't deport him back to Brazil, which is very sad, is probably going to happen because there's not another game plan. And this is what frustrates me. This part frustrates me because you've taken this man's taxes. The IRS, what? You didn't know that he was here illegal? Come on. Because he has a tax ID number? You don't know that he's here illegal? You took his money for 12 years. I'm sorry. I do believe in my heart that there should be another plan for this, but there isn't. Would I like
Well,
there to
a
be?
lot of
Yes,
those
I
people,
would.
Cindy,
yes, they pay
Cindy, I
taxes,
actually
Cindy.
think there's something,
I
there
well,
is
no, no,
something.
hell no, hell no, hell no, hell no,
But
no,
Go
no,
ahead,
don't sit here and
Nelson.
tell me
no,
Garcia
let me jump
is
in.
going to be our, our
Cindy,
next
I
fucking,
think there is
wonderful human.
something, there is a procedure if someone's here for
Hell
10
no,
years or
Tara. We're
more.
not. We're talking due process. Wait, listen.
I don't think so, Tara.
Come on,
I
I
man.
look
think
at
there is,
credit.
there's something called
So
removal. I
let
forget what,
Nelson answer my
Man,
question.
miss me with that bullshit.
Nelson,
Yeah,
answer Michelle's
I'm
question.
dealing with an immigration lawyer, okay? And when an
All right.
immigration lawyer, and this guy's not a small lawyer here in Boston, right? When he says what he says to me 5 times, I understand what you're saying, Cindy, but at the where we stand right now, he is an illegal.
All right.
Do
All right.
everything you can do, get all the letters you can get, do what you need to do. But the chances are he's going to get deported. But
Yes, but Cindy,
maybe
if he can
they will
show
let
that
him
it would
back in.
reap
Jesus Christ.
great hardship to a permanent American citizen of some kind, and if he's been here more than 10 years, there is, I don't know that it would work, but there's a way to sort of say, I think you cancel the removal or something
Okay,
like that.
so when
So
I'm
ask the
dealing,
guy about that.
but
I mean, I
I
I've
obviously,
guys,
asked him,
can I
Tara, I've
jump
asked
in?
him every question.
Can I
When
jump in and respond to Rochelle? Like, guys, come on. I mean, let's talk due process, right? You guys ready? There we go. Tara, fucking crazy. Anyways, Rochelle, okay, are you telling me that you believe the Trump administration did not follow due process in Mr. Garcia's deportation? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I said.
Okay, so who's saying
Do
that?
you do
Is
you have the
anybody
question I asked?
is anybody here saying that the Trump administration did not follow due process in Mr. Garcia's removal from the country?
Oh,
Is it
I'll put a name on it. That
100%.
was Tira and
100%.
Jonathan
Well,
Bing.
I asked you, it
100%.
was about the Supreme
Tira?
Court
100%.
decision.
So
100%.
Rochelle, my
100%.
my education that I'm going to deliver to Mr. Jonathan
No,
Bing
no, 100%.
ties
And you
in
know what?
tie,
Who
tie,
else? You know who else said it? The Supreme Court said it. The District Court
yeah.
said it. The Appellate
That's
Court
not
said
what
it.
they said.
Rochelle, it ties into my response to you as well. I apologize for that crazy guy just talking how he talks. Listen, okay, check this out. Right, due process doesn't mean a fair process. Okay, well, actually, I take that back.
What?
It means a fair process, but it doesn't mean guaranteed results or a guaranteed outcome. Do you understand? Mr. Garcia had three things. Three things. He had an immigration hearing. He was represented by counsel, and he received a decision on his request for withholding of removal. That's due process. Do you understand? The immigration court originally issued an order of removal. Don't forget, right? Then later on, they granted withholding of removal, meaning he could not be deported to El Salvador, but could be removed elsewhere. Due process was completed. Do we all agree that that happened? Do we all agree? Are we all in agreement? Are
Oh,
we?
he
I
Is
don't
wasn't when
he
he
believe we
was
are.
is he the
when
same
he was
guy?
No, no,
deported.
no,
He
no,
needed
no.
another
One
One second.
second.
hearing.
Well,
I'm not
No,
I
done.
I
tell you
don't
One
where I
second.
agree.
agree. I agree
I don't
that
agree.
we don't need a Supreme
Okay.
Court no
Thank you
more.
very
We
much. You
got
agree.
Nelson. No,
Thank you.
I support. We don't need a Supreme
No,
Court. We got
I
Nelson.
don't agree.
All right. Thank you very much, Chair, for
No, I
agreeing. I
don't
appreciate it.
agree.
You
Can you
don't
hear
agree
but
with
me?
what?
but Nelson, is he the same
Nelson, he
guy
was
that they
entitled
said?
to another hearing before they deported him, right? In 2025. You're talking about
Who
the
said so?
2019 stuff. In
Who said so?
2025, when he was entitled to a hearing at that point, which they didn't give him
He was not
because
entitled to no goddamn hearing,
yes, he
girl. Listen,
was. You're
listen,
always
listen, listen,
entitled
listen.
to a hearing. Sorry.
Listen, the hearing was
It might
already
have been
done.
perfunctory. It might have
The
been non.
hearing is done. Where in the
No, no, no.
Constitution
He
does
was
it say
entitled to
you're
another
required to
one
two
and he
hearings?
didn't get it. I'm
No, no, no,
sorry.
no, no. Tara, give me the proof.
N-
Give me the proof that says
Nelson,
you are entitled to two
The
hearings. Give me the proof.
Supreme Court
Nelson,
ruling. The
Give me
was
the proof.
Supreme
he
Court. The
was
Supreme
he the
Court
The
ruling
same
when they
guy?
Supreme
said
Court.
you were to facilitate his
Listen,
return.
listen.
Was he
That's
the same
bullshit.
guy that
That's
they said
bullshit.
that they sent
Okay,
over by
okay,
mistake?
guys, listen to me. This is
Nelson,
getting ridiculous. One second,
Can I
Michelle.
respond to one person at
Wait,
a
wait,
time,
hold on one
though?
second. Let me say something, man, because I haven't been speaking. This is getting ridiculous. The Supreme, if he wasn't entitled to a hearing, the Supreme Court wouldn't say you need to facilitate his return so that he can have
You know
his
why they
hearing.
did? You know
Okay?
why they did? You know why they did?
Okay, okay. Yep,
Because
you
the
know what the Supreme Court did.
deportation.
A
The,
9-0.
and I'm giving you the facts. You're too stupid to understand it. The deportation was labeled an administrative error. You guys have said this multiple times, and that's true, right? Hence why the Supreme Court said that the guy is due a second hearing due to the administrative error. Correct? Am I
That means
correct? Am I
that
wrong?
means that the Trump administration need to hire your ass and get rid of their judges and their
I
attorney
mean,
general.
I'm quoting things that have already been said. I'm quoting things that are already out there. I'm not saying anything new.
Nelson, by administrative error, you mean that they admitted
They
that they
removed him
made a
to the wrong
mistake
person,
sending him
wrong
over there
place.
more than once? They
Listen,
did say that, right? That they sent
listen.
him by mistake more than once. Didn't they say
What?
that? Didn't they say more than once that they made a mistake sending him over there? The administration?
Yeah, yeah. That's the administrative error that I'm talking about.
Okay, so when they made the administrative error and they admitted that they made a mistake by sending him over there, what exactly was the mistake? Was the mistake that they should have sent him to that country in particular? Was the mistake that he didn't get due process? Was the
No,
mistake
the
that they
mistake
didn't have
was
any of the information that
no,
they
no, no,
just
no, no, no,
released
no, no, no.
yesterday
Listen.
before sending him over there? Because yesterday was the
I'm
first
trying to give
time
you
we
the
heard about
answer.
all of this information.
I'm
Go ahead.
trying to give you the answer.
Go
The
ahead.
mis- the mistake was he was deported to that country, right? That was the mistake. He could have been deported anywhere else in the world, but the fact that he was deported to that country was the error, right?
That's not true.
Nelson,
That's not true. If that was the
if
case,
you
if
read
no
the
one second, if
district
that was
court,
the case, one second, if that was the
yeah.
case, they would say take him out of that country and put him somewhere else. They wouldn't be telling him bring him back here so he can have his hearing. That the guys,
Jonathan,
this is all
Jonathan,
made up. All right.
Jonathan, dude,
They ain't bringing him back,
like,
guys. They're
yeah.
not bringing him back to this
But
country.
that's not. Listen, once again, this dude had an initial hearing, right? The immigration court, and please, everybody, just listen to what I'm saying and let it register, okay? The immigration court originally issued a final order of removal. Do you understand? They issued a final order of removal during his hearing. Later on, the court granted withholding of removal to El Salvador. That's not saying the initial order of removal is just gone away and whatever and this supersedes it. No, this both of these put together says this guy can be removed. He just can't go to El Salvador. Like this is factual stuff. This is dude. You call yourself a host of debate the news. You don't even have your facts straight. It's ridiculous. Okay, so he can be removed legally. He just can't be removed to El Salvador. The administrative error, okay, which the Supreme Court in their order acknowledged, was the fact that he was removed to El Salvador. So due process has already been done. This guy's
No,
this.
no, Nelson, he would
Oh
have
my
had
God.
to. No, you're wrong. You're just wrong legally. That's why the district court said his removal was wholly lawless, okay? He was entitled to a hearing Even I understand he got one in 2019 to dispute the whether he would be allowed to be deported at all. And certainly, if there had been a hearing, they certainly wouldn't have sent him to El
If
Salvador,
he
right?
fucking
Because
appealed,
no,
if
he
he
was
fucking
entitled,
appealed the decision.
whether it was a serious due process hearing or not, or whether it was one of the more perfunctory ones is maybe the question, but he was entitled to a hearing then. That's why both the Fourth Circuit and the district court said it was not lawful what was done, not because he was necessarily just sent to El Salvador, because he didn't get any due process along the way. That's why they want him to come back to get that hearing to determine. Now, the hearing, like I said, I think they're going to determine immediately he's deportable, right? I get that. But that's why they're saying it. You're wrong about Dupe. He was
That's
entitled
But
bullshit.
to
that's not
another
the
hearing. You're wrong.
interpretation.
That's
But that's
bullshit.
not the
What you're saying,
interpretation of the Trump
That's not what the
administration.
courts have
is
said.
bullshit. You're not
It's not.
no, there's no such thing as two fucking hearings, right? There's no such thing in immigration law with regards to that. If there is, bring it up right now and let's talk about it. It's bullshit. Okay?
So
He
Nelson, let me
already
ask you a
had
question.
no, let me
Let me
finish. Let
go
me
ahead.
finish. He already had his full due process hearing. He already fucking had it. Okay? And you already had the end results of those fucking hearings. What the fuck are you talking about that he was entitled to a second hearing? Bring up the page in the Constitution that says that. I'll wait. What the fuck are you guys talking about?
So Nelson, so based on what I have heard and I'm hearing, is that he was entitled to due process because at the end of the day, if they had followed the last time he had due process from 2019, then they should have made a decision at that point. They didn't do anything. So to make a decision to send him somewhere out of the blue,
Oh my
out of the
god.
sun,
The
no,
decision was
no. Let me
made.
finish. Let me finish. To make a decision that, oh, today is the day we're going to decide to send you somewhere, and where we're going to send you with everybody else that we want to send over to El Salvador. So let's take him out of the equation. The Supreme Court made their decision that people can no longer be sent there unless they have due process. So does that mean that everyone else that's over there, that they should have had due process?
You okay, Rochelle, you're wrong.
Because
The
no, I'm not.
decision
How
just
am
wait,
I? Okay.
wait a second. Okay? The decision of the hearing was already made in 2019. The decision was made. The decision was you have been issued a final order of removal. Okay? And on top of that, you are also granted a withholding of removal to El Salvador. That's the decision. The decision is you can be removed at any point in time by the United States. We just won't remove you to El Salvador. That's what that means.
Okay,
That
and so
is the decision.
why didn't they remove him to somewhere besides El Salvador back in 2019? That's one
Because
thing.
it was the Biden administration.
The
Bruh,
second
like
thing
the
is
Biden
the
administration
second
was
thing
soft on
is
That's right,
immigration. We
when
Johnny.
all
they
know that.
decided to remove him, they
My
decided
God.
to move him with all of the other people. So yeah, they made an error in doing so because they sent him somewhere where they was not supposed to send him. But I go back to the Supreme Court decision that states that the administration can no longer just take people in the cloak of darkness, put them on a plane, and
Supreme
take them
Court
to El
never said that.
Salvador. That they
Supreme
have to
Court never said that.
that they have to have due
That's not in
process.
the
They
order.
have to notify. I'm speaking of the
The
Supreme Court.
Supreme Court said
I'm
nothing
speaking
about
of the
due.
Supreme Court decision in reference to taking people and taking them to El Salvador. That decision, which says that they do have to let them know ahead of time that they are possibly going to be deported, and then they have to give them due process when they show up in court and basically have the position argued as to whether or not they should be taken out of the country. They did make that decision. So since he was part of the original group of people that didn't get due process, you're saying that because of the 2019 order that he didn't have to get the same due process that the people who are already over there should have gotten. He's the only one out of
Okay,
everyone that's over there right
Rochelle,
now
just one second.
that should not have gotten due process.
Just 1 second, Rochelle. Okay, I'm going to paraphrase a section of the order that was given by the Supreme Court. The removal of Abrego Garcia appears to have been the result of an administrative failure, not a deliberate. I'm not sure if this is I'm not sure if this is exact, but the removal, somebody confirm this by the way. The removal of Abrego Garcia appears to have been the result of an administrative failure, not a deliberate circumvention of due process. Okay? Due process was not violated. Okay? The court acknowledged that Abrego's deportation occurred despite a valid withholding of removal order, which prohibited, him being deported to El Salvador, right? It literally
Right.
described it
It
in the
sounds like you're just
order.
reading. So you get to that part,
I
then you
am.
start
I
ad
am actually.
libbing. Then you
Yeah,
start ad libbing.
I absolutely did. I mean, you guys want facts? You guys, thank you. It described the deportation as an administrative error. Those two words right there, administrative error, are actually in
And
the
delivered,
quote.
not deliberately circumventing, which means his due process, which means that his due process was circumvented.
No, no,
You just read your deck. Yeah, you did.
that's not the.
That's what it said. It
Lord
said
have
it was
Lord have
not a
mercy.
deliberate.
You
It was
guys
not. A,
always defend illegal, bad criminals.
It's not even that right now. This guy's
Yeah,
they're
but it
trying
really
to argue.
is. Like
They're
you're all
arguing
Americans
facts.
in this room here right now. And what? You want to give them what? You want to give them hearings when you
no,
already
I well,
know that they're
I
They
want
MS
already, they
13
already.
Not all
games?
Americans in
Here's the
there.
point. Here's the point.
That's
Cindy,
not what I
They
just
already.
said.
You guys are defeating
Cindy.
the
Do
whole
you
purpose.
understand what we're arguing,
Johnson,
Cindy?
hold up for a
Yeah,
second,
and you know
Johnson.
what? Tomato, tomato. At the end of the day, he's not a
Right.
good dude. And the mistake was that he should have went
Cindy,
back to El Salvador.
Nelson, what
Okay,
did you
no,
but
read
Tara
from?
wants everybody to go. Tara would be
Nelson,
happy
what
if
did you
everybody
read
goes in
from?
front of a judge, right, Tara? That would make you
Nelson,
happy.
Yeah,
what did you read from? Because I don't think that's what the Supreme Court
and
actually said.
it literally says administrative failure in their order. Pull it up,
No, no,
Tara.
no, 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 no. The Supreme Court decision, April 10th, says the United States acknowledges that Abrego Garcia was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador and that the
There we
removal
go.
to El Salvador was
There we
therefore
go.
illegal. But it doesn't
There,
say what
there
you
we
just
go.
said about he got
There
the
we
United
go.
States represents that the removal was a result of administrative error. The United States alleges that he's been found to be all these things.
I
It
mean,
doesn't,
what
however,
you
say
just
the
said
one
right
thing.
now,
Wait,
what you just
Nelson.
said is an administrative error. You literally just read
Nelson,
it.
it doesn't
That is
say.
an
You said he
administrative
was
error.
he'd already gotten, you said
Did they
something
say
about
anything about due process, Tara?
Nelson. You
Did
said
they say anything about due process?
yes in the agreement in the order they actually do. That wasn't the order. That was a
Read it.
statement of the facts.
Read it. Read it.
Okay.
Read the part of the order where
Do
they
all
mention due
right. To
process.
that extent, the government's or the rest of the district court order remains in effect. But who she said it was a lawless removal, by the way, in the district court order, but
Where
requires
due
that
process? Due process.
but requires
There
clarification
we
or
go.
remand. The order requires the government to facilitate his release from custody and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. The intended scope of effectuate is unclear. The district court should clarify its directive with due regard. For its part, the government should be prepared to share what it can concerning the steps it has taken and the prospect of further steps. Now, nowhere in that
Anything about
order,
due process?
why does it have to say that?
Thank
That's
you
clearly
very
what it,
much, because they didn't
no,
violate due
Nelson, you
process.
just misread. You said it was a valid order of removal. It doesn't say that. It
Wait,
said the
wait, wait,
United
wait. What?
States. Remember when you just read something, you read it wrong. You made
Wait,
up something.
read what? Wait,
When
what?
you read the Supreme Court order and you fuddled it a little and said, am I saying it right?" You didn't read it right.
Okay, so this is what I read. Hold on, let me bring it back
Mm-hmm.
up. I said the removal of Abrego Garcia appears to have been the result of an administrative failure, not a deliberate circumvention of due
Where
process.
does it say that in the Supreme Court? Where does it
I,
say that?
this is on an article.
It doesn't say that.
This is on an article.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. The order doesn't say that. I'm looking at it now.
It definitely doesn't say they violated due process either, my sister.
But what I'm saying is you're reading an article, you're not reading the case. It didn't say that.
You just read the case, and it doesn't say anything about them
Because
violating
what
due process.
it doesn't have to use those
Our
words. In
argument
fact,
is about due process.
Sotomayor, I think, used the term due
Okay. Okay.
process.
Okay. You know what? Let's do it like this. Okay. In what you just read from the order, okay, what you just read from the order, you read that the U.S. government violated, the lawful withholding of removal order that was in place. Correct? They had that in there. Correct?
what it said is the United States acknowledges that he was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador and that the
There
removal
we
was
go.
therefore,
There we
it
go.
doesn't say a word about
Wait,
your
wait, wait, wait,
initial
wait, wait, wait,
order
wait,
being
wait.
still
Let
in
me help you
effect.
out. Let me help you out,
No, it
Tira.
doesn't say
Wait, wait,
that.
wait, 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 Tira, Tira, pause
Read
for a
the
second.
case, damn
Tira,
it.
pause. That's all I needed from you right there. But read that part again without the extras. Read
The
that part again.
United, no, you read the place where you said
Oh
that the
my gosh.
court
Tira,
said,
Tira, Tira, Tira,
you
Tira,
read,
Tira,
no,
Tira, Tira,
you made an
Tira,
erroneous
Tira,
statement and now you're
Tira,
trying to
Tira,
correct it by having me
Tira,
read to you.
Tira, Tira. Read that part
No,
again
I'm going to read you
without
something
the
else.
extras.
I'm
Without
going
the
to read you
extras.
something else.
No, read that part. I'm trying to make a point. Please, just please play along.
The
Read
United
that.
States
Just read that part.
acknowledges that Abrego Garcia was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador,
There we
and that
go. There we go. There we go. Right there.
that's
Right there. Right there. Here's why that's important. Right.
I
The
still don't know what you're
Supreme
talking
Court.
about.
Wait. The Supreme Court is acknowledging that due process took place in order for that order
wow.
to
Where
be
did
in
they say due
effect.
process, Nelson? Wasn't that your argument just now? Where did they
Once
say
again,
due process,
listen,
Nelson?
listen,
They
listen,
weren't
listen, listen. You're you're
claiming
you're
they didn't say
you're
it.
you're you're
Bullshit.
jumping the gun without even listening. What you just read was the Supreme Court acknowledging the order that was given in an immigration hearing held in 2019. That hearing where Abrego Garcia appeared with his counsel was due process, right? So he was given his due process because they're acknowledging the order that was the end result of due process, right? There's nowhere in that order does the Supreme Court say the Trump administration violated due process rights of Abrego Garcia. As a matter of fact, they are acknowledging the order that came as a result of the due process that Abrego Garcia had, right? Which is the withholding of removal order, right? For El Salvador. They acknowledged it, right? So once again, this right here is an administrative failure, an administrative error because he shouldn't have been deported to El Salvador. He could have been deported anywhere else in the world,
Nelson, the
right?
court did not say that he was not entitled to an additional hearing. You're making that up. I'm going to read you something else. Nevertheless, I agree with the court's order that the proper remedy is to provide Abrego Garcia with all the process to which he would have been entitled had he not been unlawfully removed. That means the government must comply with its obligation to provide Abrego Garcia with due process of law, including notice and an opportunity to be heard in any future proceedings. Okay?
If they're deporting him to El Salvador,
No, that doesn't,
if
no.
they're
Like I
deporting him
said,
No,
to El
no.
no,
Salvador,
you're wrong. You're just wrong.
1,000%.
No, 1000%. You don't know what you're reading.
1,000%.
Yeah, up.
1000%. And I will go and find Zinnis's
Yeah,
order,
them
which
and the rest
discusses this
of
as
the
well.
shit.
I mean, we can rock and roll, Tara. Let's go.
Well,
Cause
Nelson, she just read to you
I'm
from the
agree with
order
you.
Bring
Okay,
your
here.
so
case law.
Bro,
Nelson, you
that's
read
crazy. I'm tell you
Debate
what's
the case
crazy.
law.
Nelson
No,
read
I'm
to
gonna
you.
tell you what's
Trouble with
crazy.
money,
What's
I'm not
crazy is one second. What's crazy is next week when the Supreme Court rules on this, I wonder what he's gonna say then.
Then we
And
can talk
guys,
about it.
y'all spent 2 hours there listening to this. I want y'all to remember. I want y'all to
Then
get
we
mad
can
at
talk
him
about it.
that he made y'all listen to him for 2 hours when the Supreme Court rules against him next week.
Listen, then we can talk about it. Up until then, you don't know what they're going to rule on or what their order is going to say.
They already ruled. They
So,
already
What
so,
was
ruled.
the 9-0 ruling on?
so we can continue to have a conversation. You understand? We continue to have a conversation. You
So the
understand? I mean,
Supreme Court can
very
actually
simple.
rule on this?
Nelson
So very
Clubhouse say you
very
wrong.
simple. And Clubhouse ain't never got nothing right since they started. Okay, so
But Nelson, you talked
much
about an
less this.
article.
So
Tara read the
can I
decision.
want to read you
Tara,
one more
And
thing. Can I
Tara read
read
the
process,
you?
order, and
No,
guess
no, no,
what?
Nelson.
and it
The
Nelson,
spoke
order
about
she
due
read,
process,
the
Nelson.
order she read backed up everything I had to say.
Nelson,
It spoke about due process, Nelson.
no. Let me read something else. Nelson,
Go
did you
read it.
remember when the Supreme Court said that the judge's order stays in effect except for the effectuate language? Remember
Correct.
that?
Correct.
Right? So here's the initial order. 6 years later, without notice, legal justification, or due process, officers from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement put him on a plane bound for the CCOT in El Salvador. Neither the United States nor El Salvador has told anyone why he was returned to the very country to which he was been detained. The silence is telling, as defendants acknowledge they had no legal authority to arrest him, no justification to detain him, and no grounds to send him to El Salvador, let alone deliver him into one of the most dangerous prisons in Western Hemisphere. Having confessed grievous error, they now argue she's saying that he should have been given a hearing. That order
Now,
remains in
Tara,
effect.
and
That
guess what?
remains
And
in
guess
effect.
what?
The Supreme Court said that. So you're
And
bullshit.
guess what?
Bullshit.
I agree with that order, right? Because here's the deal, right? Here's the deal. His withholding of removal prevented him from being deported to El Salvador. The initial order allows for him to be deported anywhere else in the world.
But did you
The
just
fact
hear what I
wait,
said? 6 years later,
let me
without
respond.
notice,
It
legal
doesn't matter if it's 10
justification, or
years
due
later. It
process.
doesn't matter if it's 10 years
Hold
later.
on, Tara.
An order is a fucking order. Okay, you can be deported any fucking time as long as that order is in fact in place. There's no time limit. Okay, so going back to what I said, I agree with with the district court's order. Here's why I agree with
Yes, go on one second.
it.
Hold
Okay,
on, Nelson. No, hold on.
let
No,
me
Scott,
finish what I'm
don't.
saying before you cut
I'm
me
gonna
off.
let you finish what you're saying. Hold on,
No,
bro.
dude, I'm
Bro.
gonna
Hold
lose
on,
my
bro.
train of thought, bro. Mute your mic. Let me
You
finish.
lose your chain.
Yeah,
All right,
jump after, dude. Let
go,
me
go,
finish.
go, go,
God
go,
damn it.
go.
Fuck. Okay. I agree with the Supreme Court's order, and here's why. Okay. His once again, for those of you guys that are not listening, his withholding of removal, the order that was given, right, with regards to withholding his removal to El Salvador, prevents him from being deported to an El Salvador unless there's a subsequent hearing, right, with new facts being presented in order to have the court, right, shift that order to something else. So I agree with the fact that that administrative error that led to him being deported to El Salvador was done without due process on that part. But when it comes to this individual being illegal and subject to deportation, if it was to
Bro,
another country, we would not be talking due process
a
because
whole
that's
Nobody,
what the
branch.
statute.
nobody's
One
talking
second, one
about
second.
that,
A whole branch.
Nelson.
One second,
Now,
guys.
Tira, do
No,
you agree with that?
a whole branch
Tira,
of
do
the
you
federal
agree with
government
that part?
disagrees with you. A whole
Tira,
branch of the federal
Tira,
government disagrees with you.
Tira, do you agree with that part? What I just said right
I think you are conflating things. You
now.
said
Oh my God.
this order is in effect except as to the term effectuate, right? The order clearly states that he did not receive due process to which he was entitled when he was removed. Okay? That's what it says. If you believe the Supreme Court, this part of the order is still in effect. It actually said, as to the third element, defendants deprived Albrega Garcia of this right without any procedural protections due to him.
Okay.
Okay? There's 5 times in this particular, the district court order, which is still valid according to the Supreme Court, where she talks about the lack of due process which should have been afforded to him. So you can say what you want to, but why don't you read the case law and then get back to me? The court held that he was entitled to a hearing and he didn't get one. It might have been a perfunctory hearing. It might not have been the sort of hearing that we all are talking about. It might have been before an immigration judge who would have just stamped the paper and said, send him wherever you can except for El Salvador. But he was entitled to a hearing. That's due process.
And
Let
also, one second,
me
guys.
ask you a question
Hold on.
here.
Anyone, one second. Anyone tells Tara to be quiet or mute up, okay? Host, kick them out because it's not your space to tell her that. She's having an engagement with Nelson and Nelson only. We don't need anyone else jumping in here and trying to bully her and
I
telling
heard you the
her,
first time.
okay, all right.
All right, Tara, let me ask you a question here. Okay. Um, what were the two rulings given in his initial hearing?
Two rulings in 2019.
Correct.
Okay. The first was, I believe, but I don't know if the second, because I haven't read those orders per se. Have you? I haven't actually seen them,
I've
so
said
I'd have
them
to
like
see them.
3 times in our argument. You didn't listen, but I want you to give it to me since you know.
No, like the first one was that he could be deported, but the second one was, but he could not be deported because he made a claim that he was in fear of his life in El Salvador, that he could not be deported to El Salvador.
Okay, cool. So the two rulings were this, right? Number one, final order of removal. That's a final order of removal. There's no subsequent hearing after an illegal immigrant is given a final order of removal. At any time, you can be picked up and deported to your country. That's a final order of removal. Ladies and gentlemen, please Google it so you can get an understanding of what it is, right? That was a ruling given in his immigration hearing in 2019. There's no subsequent hearing.
Never
When
had,
ICE
yeah.
come pick you up and deport your ass, the final order has already been given by the courts, right?
That's a
No.
lie. That's a
No,
They
straight
put
lie.
forth,
one second,
dude,
guys.
I'm not done. Like, what the fuck? I'm talking to Tira, man.
Okay,
Straight
but here's the
lie,
thing, Nelson.
bro.
I won't say this, and no, here's my stage. One second. If the court comes in, I mean, if the court issues a stay, the Department of Justice, and this is where your argument dies, but you're going to argue it anyway. The Department of Justice or no one can remove that stay but the courts, and
No
the
stay
courts
was
didn't.
issued. No stay was
Yeah,
issued.
it was. It
No
was.
stay was issued in this case. If it was,
Yeah.
pull it up.
Why
Pull it up
they
and share
put
it
that
for all
whole?
of us to
They
see.
issued a hold on that what you
They
call it?
did
They did.
not issue a hold, dude.
Nelson, my
Okay? Let
understanding,
me, no, no,
and
no, wait, Terry, he
They
cut me
were
off. Let me
not. They
no,
were
finish,
no, no,
not
no,
okay?
but I think you're
authorized to
wrong.
do
My
what they do.
understanding
Oh
is
my
that
God.
once a withholding of a removal is issued, the other order is no longer fully valid. Okay, so you need a
Absolutely
new
not.
order. I want to hear from an immigration
Absolutely
lawyer,
not.
not you. Do we have an immigration lawyer on this
Absolutely
panel?
not. No,
Where
no,
are you getting that from? Where are you
we
getting
can
it from?
find the information. Where are you getting your shit from? Are you an immigration lawyer?
No, I'm not. That's why, but
You're
you're not.
making
I know it.
guesses on
I
this
know
stage
sure
and
as
you
hell
think
know
it's
that you're
fact.
not.
It is
Where are
not
you getting
fact.
your information
Okay?
from? No,
So
I
so
have
so, so
not
once
seen
again,
it said
so
anywhere.
once again,
Where are
two
you getting it from?
orders. Do you agree that two orders were given during the immigration hearing?
There was
Yes or no?
one order, and then a next order said he could not be deported. My understanding,
To a
but I don't know
specific
this to,
country,
to a
correct?
specific country. But my understanding is
Wait, is that
that would
correct? To a
maybe
specific
stay
country,
the
is that
initial
correct?
order. That
Absolute
probably have
bullshit.
stayed the. But you don't know this. I believe
Absolute
that's the case,
bullshit.
but I'm not sure. Where are you getting your
If you're
information
not
from?
sure, go find out and then you
You
can
no no
talk
no
about it.
you're the one who's claiming it. I'm not. You're the one
I
who
am
raised it.
absolutely claiming it
Where?
because
Give it.
again, because
Give it.
can I finish? Can I finish?
Give your backup. Give your support. Do
You're the one
anything.
that needs to research, not me. I'm
No,
talking.
you have to. You're the
You're
one who
thinking,
claimed that
right?
he is not
I
entitled to. You
listen. I made a claim. If you don't have the facts to refute my claim, go Google and get the facts. Up until then, Nelson has made a claim. You need to go bring
said
the facts
That's
to
not how
say
it
you
his
works,
claim is
bro. You can
bullshit.
make a
Nelson. You
claim,
made
don't
a
So
make
go
it
get the
true.
claim
facts.
that the
Go get the
withdrawal, the
facts. Go
removal
get the
order
facts. Let me
is
no no
still
no.
in
Listen,
effect.
listen. Let me finish
Almighty
while I'm
Nelson.
talking. Go research the facts. How about that? Okay.
Stop
So
muting me.
so
Fuck
back.
off.
Go research the facts. Okay. Because right
You
now
made the
he
Bring the
ain't
claim.
got
facts.
You
it.
need to provide the facts.
Just
I don't need
listen.
to. I
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
you
what
You're
are
do.
we
the one
talking
who
about here?
keeps
Listen,
saying
listen,
that
listen,
this
listen, listen,
order
listen.
was final, so he doesn't need another hearing. You
One
keep saying
thousand
that.
percent it was
Show
final.
us.
1,000% it was final. So once
Show
again,
the
going back to what I was
receipts.
saying while she Googles, okay? Two orders were given, which she did not refute. The reason why she did not refute it is because it's facts. The first order was a final order of removal. The second order was a withholding of a removal to El Salvador. So she's claiming that the second order automatically stays the first order. I'm saying that's not the case. It's orders, two different orders. It's basically saying you can be deported, you just can't be deported to El Salvador. So if she's refuting the fact that those two orders remain in place, she should go pull the facts that says the second order stayed the first order. If none of you guys can provide that facts, I'm sorry, you're incorrect. Okay?
You have
So,
provided absolutely no backup. You're
God,
the one who made the claim that the first order was still in effect. You have not provided anything, not even an article. We don't have anything from you saying that the first order was still in effect. I have asked you for that. You don't appear to have it. You need to provide that.
this is crazy.
You know what, Tara?
You guys just want to
You know
argue,
what? Let's give this to
argue,
Nelson.
argue
No,
forever.
no. Hey guys, let's give
It's
this to
crazy.
Nelson. Okay, that way we can move on. Let's give it to him because only thing. I mean, Nelson. He's more right than the Supreme Court. He's more right than the District Court. He's more right than the Appellate Court. Okay, because all three of them have ruled the way what we're saying.
Once again,
So
I've said this. I've said this a few times, Jonathan. You are hard of hearing. I've said that I agree with the district court's ruling. I explained my rationale for why I agree with it. But it
How come
seems
Donald Trump and them?
it
How come the
seems
administration's not even arguing
it
what you're
seems
arguing?
once again, in my opinion, the administration hasn't done anything wrong. They've complied with everything.
But if the
So
administration's not even arguing what you're arguing, how come if it's so
what do you mean they're not arguing
they're
what
not
I'm
arguing what you're
arguing?
arguing?
What do you mean? What am I arguing that they're not arguing? Tell me.
That you're saying that he was given his due process already. He
Absolutely.
he, he wasn't entitled.
The
The
same thing the
administration.
administration is saying.
No, they're not. They're not
What,
saying
so,
that.
so what are they saying?
They're saying that they're trying to comply with the order to get him back so that he can have his due process, but El Salvador is not cooperating.
That's not what the administration is. Administration is saying something very simple. They have complied with the order.
That's not what they're doing.
If he shows up at a point of entry, they will let him back into the country. The
Okay.
administration's already
No, no,
said
no.
that.
No, if they comply with his order, if they could comply, why if they comply with the order, okay, and if they did everything right and he was deported, if he shows up at a point of entry, let's say Mexico, why would they have to let him in the United States, Nelson?
Because they're
Because he's
complying
already
with the order.
no, because he's already in another country, Nelson.
They're complying.
Because
What?
according to you, he just couldn't go to another country. He just couldn't go
Now,
to.
now this now this
No,
part.
according to you, no,
Now this
no. If he's
part.
trying to cross, hey, well, let me finish.
Uh huh.
He's trying. If he's trying to cross over from Mexico, he's no longer in El Salvador. He's in Mexico.
So
So
what?
why would they have to let him in the United States?
Because they're complying with the order as
No,
they
no,
said
but
that they have.
they comply with the first order now because he's now in Mexico. He's no longer in El Salvador. So technically,
It
they're off the
relates.
hook.
It doesn't relate to his country. It relates to the person itself, right? The
Okay.
person himself. Okay, so Jonathan, this part of the argument is you arguing with the Attorney General of the United States, not me. So it's either you're smarter than the Attorney General or you
bro,
think you're
bro,
smarter than the Attorney
bro,
General.
bro. Just
One
like
of
you,
the other.
so
One
either
of
you're
the other.
smarter than the Supreme Court,
I
okay,
haven't
the
disagreed
district
with the
court,
Supreme Court. I haven't disagreed with the
and the
district
appellate
court.
court.
I haven't disagreed with the appellate court. I haven't disagreed with any of them.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
because the
have,
appellate court.
because
You're
the
just
Yeah,
very
district
you're
court,
very hard of listening. You're
no,
very
the
hard of
district
hearing.
court said he was entitled to a hearing
I
that
haven't
he didn't
disagreed
get
with
in
that. I
2025.
haven't disagreed with that, but you don't listen. You just
wait.
talk.
If you haven't
Let me
disagreed with that,
explain.
then that means his due process was violated.
Just 1 second. For the fourth time, I will explain why I agree with them. You guys don't listen. You just argue, right? If you've listened to me this whole time, you wouldn't be saying this, right? Because I clearly said I agree with the fact that he deserves a hearing if the place we are deporting him to is El Salvador, because his withholding of removal order to El Salvador remains in place.
But he wouldn't
Therefore,
have gone to the wrong place if he got due process.
But if he
shut the fuck up and let me goddamn finish. Okay? Thank you very much. Once again, I agree with the district court's order. I agree with the Supreme Court's order. I agree that due process, when it comes to his deportation to El Salvador, specifically just that, I agree that due process wasn't followed due to an administrative
so
error.
if he shows up in
Can I give
Mexico,
you a caveat, Nelson,
if
really
he
No, the
shows
quick?
up in
error
Mexico,
happened
Just
because
really
due
quick.
process didn't
no,
happen.
JB, let me give a caveat as to why I think that they may get around that. Because I believe, and I can pull up the executive order that classified them as terrorists, I believe he made it so that the country of origin would be responsible for taking care of the terrorists that came out of their own country. Because remember, there was a big fight when people were saying, with the president of Mexico, she was saying, these are not all Mexicans. And I believe he covered himself. And I don't know, Tira, if you remember, but I believe that may be a loophole for him.
Why didn't he send them to Venezuela?
No, wait, what are you talking about? This guy is from
The
El Salvador.
no,
Or what? Oh,
the
that's what
rest,
I'm researching, you guys.
the rest of them, the
That's what I'm
rest who were from
researching.
the
So
rest who were from
apparently,
Venezuela. Based on what you're saying, the rest who were from Venezuela. Why didn't he send them to Venezuela? If what you're saying is correct,
what did you say?
I said what the ones who are Venezuelans, based on what you just stated, why didn't he send them to their country of origin?
Because Bukele is proud to be removing gangs from El Salvador. So, for all we know, this is going to turn into some type of foreign affairs between our executive
No,
branch and
Diana,
theirs.
no, no,
Listen,
no.
let me answer my way or don't ask the question,
But
my
you read
love.
what you read, Diana, and
Listen,
now it
Bukele
doesn't
is going to make
apply.
an example
You
of this shit.
You,
And
Diana,
he had
you
no, you
read what
guys,
you read.
Nelson, I'm so happy that you came
You
back. I know you
read
said you
what
don't
you
do
read
content, but this is what we have to deal with day in and day
because
out.
you're
They
changed.
don't
You're
listen.
because you
They
won't
don't
acknowledge.
listen.
You said what
Goodbye.
you said. The country of origin. So why aren't the
I'm
Venezuelans?
saying
Why weren't they
specific
sent to
case by case.
Venezuela?
The executive branch has the right to
Why weren't they
negotiate with
sent
each
to
individual
Venezuela?
country as they
Why are the
damn well
Venezuelans in
please.
El Salvador prisons?
I
Why?
just gave you my answer.
Why are the Venezuelans in El Salvador prisons? Nelson, based on what you stated earlier, okay? So you said that when I asked about due process, you said that he had had due
Wait,
process.
just Rochelle, one second, please, because
Hmm.
the argument Tara was trying to have with me,
Okay.
I've just researched the information.
Well,
I
yeah,
have
go ahead.
I have the answer right here, and I hope she did the same thing. Okay, this argument was in regards to the two orders that were given during the guy's hearing in 2019. The first order was a final order of removal, right, authorizing the U.S. government to remove this individual from the United States. The second order was a withholding of removal to El Salvador, right? Now, I've Googled here and it says the government still has the authority to remove this person under the original order. It simply bars removal to a specific country where the person's life or freedom would be threatened, which in this case is El Salvador. Now, so it gave me that information, and I said these people are still going to argue with me. So give me some stuff to back it up. I have three things here to back it up that I'm going to say. Statute 8 USC. I'm not a legal guy, so I can't read all this shit. 1231 B3A. Blah 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 blah. Withholding of removal. Right. The attorney general, all this is in quote, by the way. The attorney general may not remove an alien to a country if the attorney general decides that the alien's life or freedom would be threatened in that country on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. End of quotes. Right now, this right here, that's a statutory basis for withholding of removal. It essentially limits the destination of the removal, right? Not the removal itself. Number two, right?
No,
Regulation
it's
8
not true.
CFR 208.16 and brackets F. End quote. A grant of withholding of removal prohibits the removal of the alien to the country or countries to which removal has been withheld. It does not confer any right to remain in the United States. End of quote. This regulation explicitly states that withholding does not cancel the removal order, nor does it give lawful status. The individual is still subject to removal to any other country that will accept them. This is number three, the last one. Board of Immigration Appeals precedent. This is a matter of IS and CS 24 INN December 432 BIA 2008. End quote. An immigration judge who finds that an alien merits withholding of removal under Section 241B3 of the Act should enter an order granting that relief while identifying the specific country or countries to which the alien may not be removed. The underlying removal order remains in effect, right?
So you're
So
arguing that he
if
was
we
illegally here.
I am not talking to you right now. If you have not been following and you do not understand what I'm talking about, please stay on mute because those that do, and they are on mute. Thank you very much. Please don't distract me right now. Okay? This Board of Immigration Appeals president confirms that the final removal order stays valid, but the Department of Homeland DHS is simply prohibited from executing it to a particular country. So both of these orders, so essentially, in prior cases, whenever a withholding or removal order is given, it follows a final order of removal. It follows. So you can't just give withholding of removal without giving a final order of removal. Withholding of removal can only be given after the final order of removal has come in place. Therefore, the second order in this case does not stay the first fucking order. like I was trying to say. I mean, I thought it was common sense, but since you argued it, I wanted to research it, get the information, and here's the information. I was correct. So what the fuck?
My understanding, but I don't think anything you've read actually confirms it one way or the other, is that the reason why you have, listen to me, is the reason why you have to hold the hearing, the reason why you must hold a hearing in these cases is to have the potential for the party to say, I can't be removed to this other country, not just El Salvador. In other words, they have to be given the hearing so that the judge can assess whether there's another country that would make more sense. And I think that that is what happened here. There's an American Immigration Council fact sheet, which I'm about to find, and I will, give me 1 second on this one, okay?
You can take 10 minutes, you can take 20 minutes, you take as many minutes as you want. Here's the facts. The facts are this. He's had his immigration hearing. It's one hearing, right? The orders were given, which is number one, final order of removal. The US government can pick you up at any point in time and deport you from this country. In addition to that, a withholding of removal specific to El Salvador was also granted during that immigration hearing. You have one hearing.
Say that
That's
again.
it,
So
right?
Nelson, what you're saying is
Wait,
true.
wait,
However, you say
just one
you
second. I
agree.
know it's true, but just 1 second.
You go
Therefore,
ahead.
therefore, right? The first order, which is the U.S. government can pick you up at any point in time, that stays in effect. The second order prevents DHS from deporting you to the country or countries that are specified. Your time in court to state what countries you're afraid to go back to for this guy happened in the initial immigration hearing in 2019. The judge heard him out, and the judge gave a withholding of removal order for El Salvador. End of story. In this case, in this specific case, with
But that's
Garcia,
not the end, Nelson.
There
That's
was
not
a
the end.
cause to pick
let
him
me
up
finish.
You
that was needed.
Ali, like, I mean,
Let him go.
listen, I know it's Jonathan's room, but like, I mean, first class flight, okay? So here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. The reason why I agree with the district court in this case is because he was deported to the one country that his withholding of removal barred him from being deported to. That's the only problem here. Because
so
in order for the Trump administration to follow the process to actually deport him to El Salvador would be to actually go back to court, so a subsequent hearing stating that, hey, we want to deport this guy to El Salvador, but a withholding of removal order is in place. Here are the facts why we think it's bullshit and that order should be overturned. That's the only measure of due process that was required to deport this guy to El Salvador. If he was deported to fucking Guantanamo Bay, nobody could say shit. If he was deported to Nigeria, nobody could say shit. Due process would have been followed because a final order of removal was in fact ordered by the
so
judge
so
at the
going back to
immigration
my
hearing
initial
in
question to you, Nelson.
2019.
So going back to my initial question for you then. So now you agree that he should have had due process.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's all I was asking.
But again, Rochelle, I'm agreeing with you
Hmm.
because I don't want to fight with you, right? I'm sure you know
Well,
that,
you agree with me
right?
because you agree with the order from the judge, from the
I
court. That's
100% agree with the
yeah.
order from a judge, but you heard my
And it,
rationale.
and it says that. It says that
But
that's what they should have done.
you heard my rationale as to why I agree.
Whatever your rationale is,
Right?
that's your
So
rationale.
this is
But
not.
you
So
agree
again,
with the order.
this is not following due process that states
It
this
is due
guy.
process, though.
One second,
Regardless, it's due
please. I'm trying to
process.
explain. Calm down. Once again, I said I'm not going to fight with you. I agree with you. Okay, but we have to be specific. This is not the due process of, hey, this guy should be deported. This guy doesn't belong here. Blah 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 blah. That due process is already done. A final order of removal was given and granted. That was ordered by the judge. That's done. That's finito. This dude's not supposed to be here. The judge, that's done. That's a done deal. There's no more due
Okay.
process there. The only due process here was the
Hmm.
fact that he was deported to El Salvador. That's it.
So, in the order that you agreed to, Does it say that specifically, or it says that he should literally should have been given a hearing? It
It does.
regardless of anything.
It does hit on the fact, and
It hit on the
Tira,
fact.
no. It dove into the fact. Listen, Tira read it, right? It
Right. She
talked
read
about
it.
El Salvador. Wait. It talked about his withholding of removal that was in place, right? It talked about El Salvador. It talked about the most dangerous prison on the Western Hemisphere in El Salvador, right? But most importantly, it spoke about his withholding of removal order to El Salvador. It definitely was in the order, both orders actually, the district court and the Supreme Court.
The due process that the order spoke about, was it specifically stating that the due process should be whether or not he is sent to El Salvador, or did it say that he should have simply a hearing for due process?
A hearing for due process
Mm-hmm.
relating to his deportation to El Salvador.
That's not what it said. Tara can read it again.
That's the
But I'm just happy
interpretation.
that now you agree he should have had some form
That's
of due
Rochelle.
process.
Rochelle, you're a
Because
very smart.
at first you
You're a
didn't.
smart
At first
woman.
you didn't agree with
Rochelle,
that.
Rochelle,
I'm just saying
listen.
for the record, you didn't agree with that at
Oh my
first
gosh!
until she
Guys,
read that court order.
guys. We're all very smart here. You're a very smart woman as well, right? There's no additional hearing when a final order of removal is granted by an immigration judge. You are done. You are deported. You're gone. That order is ordering DHS to pick you up at any point in time and get you fucking gone. There's no additional hearing required. Never has there in the history of deportations in the United States. That's a final order. That's why it's called final order of removal. So therefore, in this case, the only due process necessary is a hearing countering the withholding of removal to El Salvador, which was never done. So I
But
agree.
at first you didn't agree to that he should have had a due
Because
process
you guys
hearing.
were arguing that.
You said
No, you
that
guys were
he'd already
arguing.
had it. I
No,
didn't. I just asked you about due
listen,
process.
The newspaper articles, the social media talk, the arguments in this room past couple of days is arguing that Trump administration never followed any due process. He's not a gang member. He's not this. He's not that. Guess what? All that argument's already done. This motherfucker was issued a final order of fucking removal. Final order
Well,
of removal.
they didn't bring
There's
out
no
this information
argument there.
about him until when? Yesterday? Is that when they brought this information out about him? The entire time that it's been argued that they sent him over there by mistake. They even said they even fired the attorney
They did
who
send him
represent.
there by mistake.
They
They
even
did.
fired the attorney.
Jesus Christ. I can't hear anybody.
We lost you, Rochelle.
Yeah, I said they even fired the attorney, I believe, who represented the administration because they felt like he didn't do a good enough job representing their position or their point. But the bottom line is that they continuously stated that they made a mistake. So by that alone,
They did.
they were wrong. Period. So what's the
They
argument about?
were. They
Right.
were.
So what is the argument about? They were wrong. He should have had due process, and that's just the bottom line.
Oh my gosh! Listen. The due process you're arguing for now is very different from the due process these guys have been debating about for the past week. Right? These guys have been arguing. The
That's a
fact that
fact.
you
That's a
bring up
fact,
whether
Nelson.
this guy's MS-13 or blah blah blah. Oh, he had the right to be here. The judge said he could be. All of that is wrong. All of that is so fucking wrong. This
And
guy
at
had
the
a
time
final.
when they had those arguments and you bore witness to it, this conversation was spoken about regarding his record. That was part of the conversation, or was it not part of the conversation?
It was. They were arguing that this guy
Because
had
I
a
haven't
clean
been here,
record.
so
They were arguing this guy had a clean record. He's a father. He pays taxes. Blah 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 blah.
right,
All
right.
of those, and they were arguing due process
But was this
relating.
information known? That's what I'm asking you. The information
Uh,
that they just released, well, I think yesterday,
this has nothing to
Bondi,
do with the information released.
was it known?
This
Because
has nothing
why
to
would
do
you
with
argue
that.
that he has a clean record if this
Rochelle,
information existed?
are you just arguing to argue?
No, I'm
Are you just
asking
arguing
you.
to argue? Or are
Listen,
you actually
I've not
listening?
been here. You tell
There's
me
a reason why.
you
There's a reason
told
why,
me what's been going on.
bruh. There's a reason why people who are usually loud on this topic right now are on mute, googling everything I'm saying to see if it's legit.
No,
And
I'm
there's
asking you,
I'm putting
Nelson.
my
dude, like, do yourself a favor and do the same thing, right? Because like everything I'm saying is actually true.
Stop putting me on mute, people. Whoever's
What
doing it.
you're just arguing to
It
argue
was
right
for
now.
No,
me.
I'm
Sorry.
asking
I'm
you.
in the
I'm actually
chat.
asking you questions, Nelson, because I have not been here.
No,
You
you're
said that.
arguing with me. You're not
No,
asking me anything.
you're not listening because you won't listen. I said
Well, then,
that
Rochelle, maybe we need to do a
the
Google search then
TC.
because you're
Won't you
tiring the
TC
entire conversation
shut
out.
up
Like,
TC,
there's other
shut
people
up
that want to
TC
get
because
in
you're
here and they
ignorant.
don't want to, like,
Nelson,
listen to you ask questions.
as I was saying,
Wait, what
Nelson,
happened to the personal text? Why are we listening to
when you
you?
said
Nobody
that
wants to hear
last
you.
week
There's
that
other
people
people
were
that want to
saying
get
that
in
he
on this
had a clean
Let
conversation.
me let
record.
her
Can you just do a
finish.
When you
Google
said
Damn.
search
last
him?
week that people said
No,
he
we're
had
not
a
gonna let
clean.
her finish. She's fucking like
This is what we getting
killing the
ready to do. Where are
conversation.
you at? Let me find you.
There's no need for her to.
Use your co-host power.
Get him. Angry
Yeah.
bird.
So when Nelson, so I'm asking you, last week when you said that the conversation ensued about this, at the time, did people know the information that we all know now about this guy that they just spoke about, I think yesterday? That's what I asked you.
Honestly, I mean, you literally heard Tara here that said she didn't even know what the court orders were during his immigration hearing. So I don't believe people actually dug to find this information, honestly.
Hmm.
And honestly, if one of them did, right, they intentionally just decided to not bring it up.
So you knew all this information last week when they've been fussing about this, going back
No,
and forth?
I
Or did you
researched this
find out yesterday,
information
like us?
today. Today.
Well,
No, no,
because
no, no, no.
they just spoke about this, I
The
think, starting
I'm not
yesterday.
talking about what they spoke about. I'm talking about the initial orders given since 2019. That information has
Right,
been out there since
exactly.
2019.
I
No,
provided them with
so
all that stuff,
It's been
Nelson. You
out there
still
since
didn't want to
2019.
listen.
This is not
so
new.
Diana, you gave this information last week
Oh, that's a fact.
when they
I
started
gave you
debating
guys
about
all
this.
of this information. Yeah, and then Tira, I don't know if Tira's still here, but the whole point was that they denied him asylum, right? So when they denied
Because
him
he asked for it too late. He only had to ask for it within a year of his getting
well,
into.
they said that it was because he didn't fit all of the legal
Oh,
requirements for
he didn't
asylum.
do it in the time frame. It's a clear 1 year time frame, and he didn't do it.
No, it was within that time frame because he was detained March 2019 and his asylum was denied October 2019. It was within
It's
the same
when you
time
get
frame.
into the country. He had been in the country for years before that. You have to do it within 1 year of the time you enter America.
Okay, and they were also saying that a problem with this withholding of removal is that then you have to find another country that will
That's
receive
why
them,
you
and it's almost
typically have a
impossible.
hearing before you're going to deport the guy because you have to give him the opportunity to make some claims about that country potentially.
Right, but the Trump administration is saying that he wasn't entitled to a due process hearing because of FTO designation, which is that terrorist organization. They are not agreeing with what you guys are saying at all. And I'm
But
glad that
that whole
everybody
issue.
heard it from a different side now.
Look, like I said, I'm going back to the district court order. She said he didn't get due process in 2025. She said he was illegally arrested. I'm not able to confirm what, I mean, Nelson is just, I'm looking for the actual, the actual orders, and I can't find them anywhere. I don't know if they're available, to be perfectly honest. I haven't seen them. I've been looking through all the exhibits that were presented to the court, and I don't see them because I'm trying to, ascertain what exactly it said and what exactly was said in the order of withholding of removal. But I have to go with what the district court said because that order is still in effect. And she said he should not have been removed at all without due process.
But Tira, they also didn't give an opinion on it, right? They kind of like they issued the request for facilitation, but they didn't give much about the reasoning or anything like that. So again,
Who's they?
every time that they issue the Supreme Court,
I'm telling you, here's what the district court said on March 12,
Can
2025.
somebody tell Little Miss Piggy to stop moving me to the audience?
Can you be quiet? On March 12, 2025, while driving home from work with his young son, Abrego Garcia was stopped by ICE agents. The officers had no warrant for his arrest and no lawful basis to take him
Rochelle,
into
stop moving him
custody.
down.
They told him only that his status had changed. He was first transported to ICE facilities, allowed a handful of calls, told he would see a judge soon, but that never happened. 3 days later, without any notice, legal process, or hearing, they forcibly transported him to CCOT, okay? So what she's saying is none of that process was legal. He needed due process in order to even, evaluate the entire process that was used, which argues against what Nelson is saying. Her order suggests that the entire process by which he was arrested, detained, and then sent was tainted, let's just say. But I can't find the original orders, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's clear that you guys can use direction.
There's no
You
need to
could
Do
find
what
blame
any
you're
court
talking
Kermit for
order.
that.
about.
So Tara, when
There's
y'all were
a lot,
discussing it
yeah.
last
I mean,
week,
less
did they bring
information
up
that
any of
gave
this, Tara?
Well, the thing
still be
is,
confused.
TC, you're in the matrix, and even if you weren't, you're not talking. About what whether he was.
His criminal record, his background.
Look, what they have said is that the courts have determined that he was a member of M13. Now, what the information, the factual basis for that was finally released by Pam Bondi, and it's fairly sparse, okay? And I think we talked about this last night. What it said was he was with people who were associated with that gang. He was wearing a Chicago, what was it, Hawks? I forget what it was, some Chicago hoodie and cap. And he had covered over, he had something, there was some slogan, he had money covering over certain things and a slogan, which is typically used by gang members. And there was a confidential informant who said that he was a member of this gang in New York, which is a little weird because he was never in New York, he was only in Maryland. The confidential informant that came after he was arrested, and the police officer who got that confidential informant and filed that paper was subsequently fired and found guilty of having solicited a sex worker for something. So that's the only proof that they have presented. But it is true that a court accepted that, sort of saying, okay, that's enough for us. So, but that's all we have on his gang membership. There's no tattoos mentioned. There's nothing else. So, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. As I said, I'm perfectly happy for him to go somewhere else other than El Salvador once he gets a hearing, right? But that's the only information we received, and that information was fundamentally funneled out like a couple of days ago.
But like Rachel says, at the end of the day, the administrative error was deporting Garcia to El Salvador, which violated his 2019 order. But
Yes,
the
but
Trump
why would
administration, hold on,
can I
just let
ask you
it.
something, Diana?
But I just wanted to land with this, because we have been told that all of this has been against his due process due to a hearing. The Trump administration is saying absolutely not. That is not the administrative error. It's the where he went. And he was not supposed to receive another hearing for that, according to them. And
I
that
don't
has not
think.
been the
Where have
narrative
they
here.
said that? Where have they
Well,
actually said that?
the court order said that he needs to have had due process. What are you talking about,
Right.
Diana?
Where
Pam
did the Trump
Bondi,
administration
America's
say that?
Attorney General.
That's charlatan. That's what
But
she
Pam
is. She's
Bondi is
American
no.
She's
charlatan.
your charlatan
Can
too,
I
though.
ask
How's
you
No, she's
that?
something?
not
Did
my
Pam
charlatan.
Bondi
She
the
don't
other day
represent me.
say
She's
that
not my
Riley
charlatan.
Gaines had been on the Olympic
Oh,
team? Didn't she say that?
oh my
Letitia
God! Can
James
somebody
represent
tell
me.
Porky the pig to be quiet, please?
Small man with little penis. You shut the fuck up. You just wish you could be taller and have a larger penis. So shut up. Anyway,
Diana, I don't know that I mean, once again, we'd have to go and read their filings, and I don't remember their filings. I read one or two of them, but it's been a while, to see if they actually said he wasn't entitled to anything. Pam Bondi has not, well, did she say that? No, she said we're just not doing it, right? I don't know that she said he was never entitled to a hearing. I think she's saying now he's gone, we don't have to bring him back, and he'd just be deported again.
I believe she is standing her ground on saying that he did not need another hearing because their administrative error is strictly regarding where he was sent.
The thing is, like I said, you heard what I read from the district court, which order is still in effect. She has said that his removal without his arrest, his detention, and his removal, all three of them should have had due process. That's all I can go by. This is the order that the court put in. These are the facts that this court put in, the district court, and it is still in effect. And I don't know that anybody's actually sort of denied this, which is weird. And I'm still trying to find out actual legal, but I'm not an immigration lawyer, and this is complicated.
Yeah, it really is. Maybe we can get one in here. That'll
You
be
know,
fun.
I think that'd be a great idea, honestly, because,
Yeah, I
we're
think so
all,
too.
I really do. I'd like to hear from someone because I don't really understand, how, I really don't understand this area of the law that well, and it is
That
complicated.
much is clear, Tara. You've made that.
Oh
You know
God, he's
what? You don't
lit
understand.
tonight.
Oh my God, he just doesn't stop. And I think it would be great if we had, do we know any? I mean, I remember once on X I talked to one, but I haven't seen her on Chatter. It'd be really nice because it is complicated, and I think a lot of it is practice as
Tara, why
well.
don't you just defer to somebody who knows what they're talking about then
You
instead
don't
of
know
trying to
what you're talking
opine
about.
on,
He
Well,
is
on
not
stuff that you have
anything.
no clue about? Why don't you
Puppy,
just stick
answer
to the
the
basics?
question.
Like,
What about Tara said that there was some due process, like there should have been a hearing, and the guy should have been like get made, they should have said, okay, this is the country you're going to, and it's not El Salvador, but it's this country, and it's an agreement. Like Tara said, there was some due process that was due to this guy after this motion or the order and the withholding at the same time. What do you
Well, the
say?
thing is,
he got his due
the
process.
judge
He
said
received his
that.
due process. He received his final order of removal. That's due.
But it had the
The
withholding at
judge,
the same time of it,
right,
right?
the judge is saying that. The judge whose order was approved by the Supreme Court has said that he should have received, the whole thing was sort of illegally done. He didn't get any due process.
Not in 2019, but at
The Supreme Court did
the
not
time of the
uphold
removal.
what the lower court said. What the
Actually
Supreme Court
said that,
said
no, you're
was
wrong.
the
You're
Supreme
wrong.
Court said that the Trump administration has the right to remove people under the Alien Enemies Act, which upheld the Trump
No, it
administration's
didn't say that.
deportation
It actually
efforts.
said we're
And
not
what it said
considering the
was,
issue. Oh my God.
So it's
You
excuse
have
attached
me.
to good
What it said
cause.
was,
So it didn't say that. What it said was
what it
that,
said was, you still have to provide notice, and you still have to give them some degree of due process. They have to be entitled to a hearing. But it did uphold the Trump
no, it
administration's
did not.
right
What it said
to
was
board people under the
procedurally,
Enemy Aliens
you're
Act.
wrong. Okay,
You're
you're just
wrong,
wrong.
Tira. Just go get a
No, you
lawyer
are
and like
wrong.
consult with somebody who knows what they're talking.
Oh, please. So listen, here's what what the Supreme Court ruled. It did not address the Alien Enemies Act claim at all, right? What it said was that we're not addressing whether the president has the right to do this. We
You
feel,
guys can
however,
keep removing me if you want to. You're
we
still wrong,
feel,
Tara.
shut, shut, shut,
Sorry,
I'm
but
talking.
just because you
We
want to keep
feel,
moving me doesn't
however,
give you the right
oh,
to
stop. I
push
didn't
me down
remove
and try
you.
and silence
Stop.
me.
I didn't
That's
remove you. I
exactly
don't know
what you
what you're
did.
talking about. Will you
We know
stop?
it was you or Porky the Pig, one of you
I
guys. Y'all
did
need to
not
cut it out.
push you down. Stop. What the court did not address the Alien Enemies Act, did not make a ruling on that. What they said is, however, procedurally, you can't do it in a class action, and each individual deportee would have to raise the Alien Enemies Act issue, or at least that's what it appears to have said. So they didn't rule on Alien Enemies Act and his right to use it. What they said is each individual person who presumably would be deported under this is entitled to notice, and notice in advance, and the opportunity for hearing and due process. That's what they said. They did not rule on the validity of the president's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. Thanks.
But here, don't you think that that's more of like a procedural oversight and not necessarily like a failure to provide due process?
What do you mean? Which is a procedural oversight?
Oversight occurred because there was no due process.
I mean, I guess their Alien Enemies Act, which is a whole different ruling, right? It's not the same ruling, right? There are two rulings. The Alien Enemies Act was a different ruling, right? Which was a 9-0, they're entitled to due process and notice, etc., in the future, right? It wasn't talking about the people who were already sent. It was talking about anybody who would be removed under Alien Enemies would be allowed to contest it by a habeas petition, in wherever they were being held, right? So
So
no, it's,
so some cause was needed, and that's why he wasn't deported back in
uh,
2019.
well, well,
Is
that's
that
interesting.
right?
Well,
No,
you
no,
know,
no.
we
He
don't know
wasn't
that he was
deported
even
in
deported under the
2019.
Alien Enemies Act, Allie. We're not 100% sure. The court has never been clear, nor has the government, under whether they were using the alien enemies. He was on the same plane as those guys, but it's
Right.
not
So they're
entirely.
making the case no cause was needed.
I
And that's
don't.
why no due process was needed.
No, I don't think they're making that case. I think they haven't been clear on whether they were deporting him under, I think it was under just general, immigration law ability to deport a person as opposed to Alien Enemies Act, although he was on the same plane with all those guys who were sent down under
No,
the Alien
it's under
Enemies
the
Act.
Foreign Terrorist Organization. It's the FTO designation. And under that designation, I could have sworn we covered that there's no due process that was required. He changed their designation and he made MS-13 a terrorist organization.
So, because he was linked to that, there were also different rights that applied to good cause that wouldn't be needed in the situation because of the charge. So, you combine the past and the citizen status or whatever with removal, but withholding it. And you combine that with the terrorists, the new law, and then no due process is needed. And no good cause is needed. And thus, no due process, right? That's
I
the
don't think
argument,
there's
Diana?
I don't think anybody has said no due process is needed in any circumstance. I mean, after all, if the president can't deport people under the Alien Enemies Act, right? Without due
It's
process, then
no,
it seems
it's
to
not.
me that they can't deport people under other circumstances without
But
some
Tira,
form.
it's not that there wasn't a need for due process more than the due process may have already been satisfied.
I understand what you're saying, but
No,
my
no,
understanding.
that's not true. It's just not true.
Why'd you
The
wake up right
nine,
now?
huh?
Why'd you wake up just to argue with me right now? Aren't you?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't wake up. I've been listening to the Nelson's. I was listening way back to Nelson's nonsense, but finally, there's a little calm. I may be able to get in,
Oh, I
and
thought that
so
was Jonathan being sorry. Who is that over there?
Who is this? Is this Manfinity or
that's
something?
sweet. That's sweet. No, that's sweet.
Oh,
Okay,
It doesn't
what's
sorry. I
up,
matter.
can't
Just listen to
I
sweet?
the.
can't see anything on top. It said
Hey,
he's saying Tiffany is talking.
no problem. No problem. Hey, how you doing? So I just wanted to say this for the conversation. 9-0, the Supreme Court ruled.
Hey,
House
hey,
Pam
sweet. Before you
Bondi
get
and
started on that,
Oh
man.
God.
Yeah, sweet. Before you get started, I got to do a room reset, guys. Um, hey, guys. Yeah. First of all, thank you guys for coming out to the Debate the News podcast. Make sure you guys, if you're listening to us at home, make sure you guys download the Chatter Social app. And also, instead of just listening to us at home on a podcast, we definitely want you to do that. But we also want you to come join us live for a live recording. We do these rooms nightly on the Chatter Social app. Once again, we do these rooms nightly live on the Chatter Social app. So, with that being said, if you're in the room, guys, right now, up top we have the Chatter Social link. Okay, I mean the podcast link. So follow the podcast, download a few episodes. Once again, follow the podcast, download a few episodes, leave a review as well. So with that being said, guys, we're going to be doing a transition. We're going to continue this conversation, but we're going to continue on the other side. So, if you are currently on the CH side, what we're going to do is we're going to do a reset, a 5 second reset. All right. So if you're on the CH side, we will be back up and running in 5 seconds. You guys are going to find yourselves in the hallway, but the room will be open in 5 seconds. But with that being said, guys, I want to say thank you guys, and once again, download some episodes, follow the podcast, follow the podcast. So with that being said, folks.